Hello guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was secretly the reincarnation of Sasuke's sister and fall in love with him again? If you enjoy this video then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
I was in a warm, comforting darkness. It was soothing, calming even. I felt like I could just sleep in there forever without any worry. That place was relief. I like to think that it was heaven. It sure felt that way. I actually thought it was, all things considered. The pain and fear was washed away by the dark nothing that promised only reprieve. Reprieve from the cruel truth and sudden destruction of everything I knew. It was so sudden, so fast. I realized bitterly amidst the pain and the fading consciousness that it was all over. Everything I ever know, gone in the blink of an eye. My peaceful slumber helped me ease the pain away and just sleep. But then, that dark safe haven started changing. There was light and I was being rejected. I didn't want to leave that comfort in favor of the imposing light. I was aware that it was an exit and something was at the other end. But I didn't want to leave my safe place. I don't quite understand yet, but I was scared of that light. It reminded me of horrible things. The muffled screams I could glean from the other side didn't help boost my confidence. I know blinding brightness. I know mind-numbing pain that tore through nerve and bone and crusting flesh. I know fear and pain and loss. My mind rationalized that it was probably trauma. I was being paranoid, associating anything bright with that horrible fire. I just want to stay in here and hide from the world forever. Was that too much to ask? There was someone else with me. It was a constant companion in that dark place that kept me from feeling alone. It had been a comforting presence even if I didn't actually see or talk to whoever it was. But now, he was leaving me in his hurry to the light. It made me sad, upset. I felt betrayed that he was leaving me. He was supposed to be my companion, my comfort. I wanted to go out just to grab him back into our safe place. But, I still resisted. I didn't want to go out and see the world. I was too scared of the pain and the horror or everything crashing and burning all around me. I mean that both literally and figuratively. I was stubbornly resisting the purge. Why would I want to leave heaven to begin with? Why would heaven push me out? Wasn't this supposed to protect me forever? This isn't what I was taught as a child. God is good, all the time. God loves all. If those are true, then, why is he kicking me out of heaven? Did I do something wrong? Am I judged unworthy and being thrown into hell? No. Please, let me stay. Please don't forsake me. Judgment came as something strong and unrelenting grabbed my leg. I cried and braced myself for my fate. It was an odd, creepy squeezing sensation that shocked me into silence. No amount of whining could ever explain the bizarre feeling. I didn't move and hoped that whatever horror was to come would come swiftly, even if I knew that was wishful thinking. There was cold and pain. The sensation of being exposed and weak and unable to move frightened me. Everything hurt. It was like all the tolerance to pain I built up in my life took a 180 and became pain sensitivity. Something pulled at me, weighing heavily. It was as if something was draining me of my vitality. I felt a sharp stab in my gut that gave way to a metal smell that I swear was my blood. I couldn't make a sound. I was too scared as all the horrible traumatizing activity about me commenced. Everything was a vague blur of darkness and light and curious large shapes that moved about me. Noise was intelligible and oozed a sense of panic. Then, there was the asphyxia. I felt like I was drowning. There was something all around me. It wasn't quite water, but I was drowning in it. It was an overwhelming sort of invasive thing that I couldn't identify. It was snaking all around me and within my weak, unresponsive body. It was like fire but not burning. I know how that feels like. But, it was warm and electrifying all the same. I felt like I was doping and swimming in coffee all at the same time. There was panic and overreaction. I wanted to scream. I was on fire. But, I couldn't. I was more focused on the gagging and the conscious effort of trying to push the something out with my mind. For some unknown reason, it seemed to be working. But, at the same time, it was making me feel weaker and colder. I felt the something come creeping back by force when I grew too weak to keep it out. I didn't have the strength to keep conscious as they came back. I did notice one thing before passing out though. I was still breathing. It soon became embarrassingly clear to me how I overreacted. I was not in any way thrown out of heaven. I was reborn, obviously, as I am currently a baby. I was more or less blind to everything. I could only identify the contrast between light or dark and the vague outlines of objects. I preferred the dark and cringed from the bright stuff. It sucked that most of what I saw were blinding white colors. But I could also hear. I heard very well. I was able to figure out that I was in a hospital, that I was in need of treatment, and that every single one of the nurses spoke in Japanese. I was suddenly relieved that I watched as many animes as I did as subbed because it was very helpful now. It came to me as a surprise when I finally pieced together the clues. I was reborn to a Japanese couple. I didn't know how to feel. I'm Catholic. I was taught about heaven and hell, not the ring of transmigration. Wasn't that Indian or something? In that case, I'm kind of glad I didn't end up as an ant or plant. I'm not going to lie and say that I was a devout follower that went to church every Sunday and all that. Because I'll be honest, I didn't, not for a long time now. But I did believe in the existence of a higher existence beyond our comprehension. For all the scientific explanations made about how the world came to be, nothing answered the most important questions. Who started the natural processes? Who designed them? Who set things in motion? God, obviously. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus and his sacrifice and how humanity was saved from sin. I also believed that we were born with free will as the ultimate test as well as the ultimate freedom. While the hands of fate did exist, we all knew how to choose our own destiny. But seeing as my Catholic faith didn't prepare me for this, I still felt put out. This Indian or whatever thing went and happened to me and I don't have enough context to work with. I'm not really sure where reincarnation first came from. The only other religions I ever had interest in reading about were the stuff that seemed like fiction works. Myth and all that. This doesn't come to me as anything close to heaven or whatever the afterlife looks like. It could still be hell though. This mind-numbing boredom and immobility might just be my punishment for accomplishing absolutely nothing in my life. This must be some cosmic hiccup. I like to think that I was just forgotten as one of the little redundant souls amongst the many other people that die in a minute. The unlucky one that slipped through the cracks and got shrugged at. After all, in reincarnation, I'm not supposed to remember my past life, right? It was sad to think that way. Depressing even. But the alternate explanation was that someone up there hates me and that would have been worse for my already frail self-esteem. So, I'm taking the first explanation. With all the philosophical stuff out of the way, my mind started lingering on my current state of affairs. I impressed myself with my line of thinking. I think I developed a bit of respect for babies now. Being a newborn sucks. I felt like I was paralyzed from head to foot and barely had a clue about my surroundings. Even the intelligible baby talk of the nurses was starting to get to me. I was just glad that I had my moments of peace to just sleep. My hearing was super acute. It helped calm me when I recognized what was what. I was even able to identify people by their breathing and footsteps with relative mental labels like nurse number 1 and so on. I found that I could gather information that way. The nurses talked a lot. They were a wealth of knowledge. I learned from them that my name was Sakuya. It was a nice name. I approve. But I get the strange feeling that the name came in late. I mean, no one called me that at least until I started consciously breathing normally. That took a while. I also learned that I have a twin. That part, I already figured from how I was born. But it was still amusing to learn that he was a boy. He was born perfectly healthy and was already in the care of our new mother. So, it explained why he wasn't with me. It was a bit lonely seeing as he was my twin. He was my companion, my other half. I felt that he should stay with me like before. Let me feel safe again. But I was mature enough to let that slide. What I thought was heaven was actually a woman's womb. How embarrassing. And the light had been UCK. Erasing that from my memory, now. Why did I have to be conscious enough to remember that? It was horrible. Horrible. My neonatal blindness eventually cleared up enough for me to discern that I was in an incubator of some kind. There were white figures constantly moving about me. I presumed they were the nurses. I could see them better in time. More than once, one of them would come over to force that weird something into me somehow. At first, I cried about it, a lot. It was the only response I was capable of making, so it was what I did. Eventually, I understood that keeping that something inside me, even if weird, was important and that it wouldn't drown me. I think it was air. Of all things that I could have been afraid of, it was air. How pathetic was that? The air wasn't the issue. Though, a part of my mind protested that it was. My mind. That was the problem. I was being overly conscious of the odd something floating about everywhere that I was hurting myself. It feels weird, but I've long since learned that forcing it out of me is bad news. I think I almost died enough times to warrant a lifetime of hospital arrest. I thought my death was a nightmare followed by this. Someone is probably laughing at me somewhere because they were both real. To breathe, I had to learn how to consciously ignore it. It was still a discomfort, but I get used to it eventually. What the hell? It was probably pollution. I'll be honest. Now that I'm letting it in, I feel like I'm constantly bordering on being high. Hey, I guess the activists were spot on about the negative effects of air pollution on the young. I hope I didn't get some congenital lung disease over this. I spent most of my time being bored out of my mind. The boredom was mind-numbing. It felt forever to me, but I get the feeling that it was only a few months, heck, maybe just a few weeks since I was first reborn. I will admit that, in my last life, I was a spoiled child, to a degree. I didn't leave home much unless prompted and preferred to stay in front of my laptop. I liked reading and watching. Most of the time, it's anime because I'm a die-hard otaku. I don't even watch TV save for the news program. My family always teased me and said that I was addicted. I don't deny it. I loved my literature, internet, and slothful lifestyle. The only troubles I ever had involved schoolwork and my friends' random drama. Now, I only have the last one and I feel like screaming because of it. But before that, there's still this doubt nagging in me that makes me wonder if I really am in Japan. We can't be in Tokyo or any other city. Sure, I'm in a hospital, but the stunning lack of heavy machinery troubles me. No hospital, even when under on funds, would have so little access to life-sustaining machines. Not all of them have to be that expensive. This is clearly a working facility, not some midwife's house where I suspect I might have been born in. I get the feeling that I might be in some poor community hospital. For all the sounds that my Superman-like hearing picked up, the whirring sound of machinery or distant traffic wasn't among them. I'm really hoping they can fix whatever it is that's wrong with me regardless. But hey, I hear that deprived medical centers like this make up for it with excellent doctors. I sure hope that's true. I was eventually released to my parents. It felt like forever, so when it finally came, I was feeling a bit excited. I was starting to fear that I was abandoned. I was hesitant to call them mom or dad because I am aware of my other parents. I encountered the same hesitance with my twin. It was a depressing thought to have, mainly since my other family were all gone. But I couldn't help it. It was my family. I wanted to know if anyone survived. I swore that I'd look them up as I got old enough and cemented the family name to memory. I learned that I had an older brother on top of having a twin. I was actually interested in that. I had a little sister and a couple of male cousins that might as well be my brothers. But I never had an actual big brother before. When I first saw his face from up close, I determined that he was very young but old enough to be able to speak complete and horrifyingly formal Japanese sentences that I barely understood. My older brother looked like he'd end up growing as quite the looker, so I was a bit curious on what I looked like. Sadly, these people don't seem to have heard of mirrors. Our home was a traditional Japanese one. It was purely wood with lots of sliding doors. I tried not to panic and yell about how easily wooden homes burn and focused on the sheer size of the property. It was actually kind of nice. Like a mansion. It made me feel like I'm on one of those school tours to Kyoto that are sometimes portrayed in anime. Maybe it was an ancestral home. Yeah, that would make sense even if we were dirt poor. They won't have to worry about much if they own the place, except tax. Does Japan have property tax? We had plumbing, thank God. I was going to rage if we didn't have at least that. Traditional homes were kind of fantastical and nice in that magical way they make you feel like you traveled back in time. But without plumbing, they sucked in my opinion. Plumbing is important. We didn't have air conditioning though. I don't think we even have electricity. The night lights were purely from the moon and fire lanterns. Really not the most comfortable for me. I do not like fire now. Okay, so, we're poor. We probably live in the country. No chance in hell that we have internet or even a damn PC. I really took my former standard of living for granted, huh? My older brother's arrival was announced by the ghastly wailing from the small bundle in his arms. He looked really flustered about it. That's a kid that's wondering where he went wrong instead of an irritated one trying to locate an off switch. I felt relief when I noticed it. I was put in a nursery with my twin. We shared the same bassinet, the same things, and even the same names sometimes when our parents get confused. Apparently, we really look alike. Good thing we have different private parts then. I noticed that most of our stuff were hues of dark blues and blacks. That suit well with me since I was never really the girly type and I wasn't a fan of bright colors. But it did tell me that no one had expected me at all. I have yet to find anything stereotypically meant for a baby girl. My twin's name was Sasuke. I knew that for sure because my father often mistook me for him during the first few weeks. It became easy later on when they finally figured out that I was the quiet one. I only ever acted up when I woke up. It takes me a couple of seconds to realize that I wasn't drowning or being burned alive. I still feel like I'm infested by unusually receptive tapeworms that I can mentally command. It was weird, but I've learned to live with it. It was a big change being a baby and all. But I've come to accept that this is my second chance. Maybe I might be able to become something worthwhile this time around. I miss my family and fear for their fate, but I'm not going to stay stuck on it. I will live. I want to die. I want to die and escape this hell. I feel like crawling back to my cozy little incubator in the hospital. Sasuke is driving me nuts. My boring days in a hospital was replaced with hellish torment. My twin brother, from what I can gather, was a very loud baby. I really should have seen that coming. I wasn't the type of person that liked kids. Sure, I liked them as they were, but not as the person that had to deal with them. Kids were noisy, annoying, grabby, curious, and tend to drag you into trouble. I know this because I had a little sister once and she made my childhood horrible. We grew up as close and somewhat similar in the end, but her younger toddler self was a nightmare. It stands to reason that I was horrible with kids since then. My problem here is that I was a child now too. Sasuke and I were twin babies. In the same nursery, sharing the same crib, and the same mother who feeds us. See the issue? 24/7 exposure. Fine, he was a baby. Asking for a little bit of maturity from him was too much if not outrageous. Fine, he was my twin. So, personal space might not even be a concept he understands yet. Especially not when we were in our mother's womb for a good amount of time together. But this baby gives a new definition to the word clingy. He won't give me the time of the day. Even when I try to escape through sleep, he's there to whine and cry and drool on me. He was an endless source of energy and demand for attention. I'm the quiet baby that only ever cries when I need food or a diaper change. In that light, I tend to be left alone to my own devices. Just how I like it. But I can never escape him. I get that I probably seem like a sullen and unusual baby. But I'm not a baby. The fact that I am mentally a 19-year-old teenager is what's making me this annoyed. You don't expect an adult to react any better when in this situation. Things got a little better when I was strong enough to roll about. It allowed me the option of getting away. He didn't like that and eventually started rolling too, but I was still ahead of him. He probably thought it was a game. I stopped having problems with breathing in air anymore. I'm still feeling that odd sensation in my body of crawling warm weirdness. I have yet to get any explanation for that. I'm getting used to it though. I hope that's not a bad sign. It's kind of nice anyhow. Definitely a step up from the morning smog that always greets me for the school days. Sure, the air here is weird, but it's 10 times better than the polluted shit in the city. One of the perks of living in the countryside, I guess. But it begs the question, why is it so hard to breathe it? I like to sleep a lot too. Like, all the time. What am I to do? I'm a 19-year-old teenager in a baby's body that has to stare at the same ceiling for hours on end. In the war between mind-numbing boredom and lazy escape, the latter often won. Dreams were more intellectually stimulating. But Sasuke usually destroyed my attempts. Just another thing on my growing list of what I don't like about my twin brother. I usually can't believe that he's my twin. I mean, the rest of our family seem reasonably mellow. He's like an ADHD-diagnosed pup that's chugged on Gatorade. It's frustrating. I usually try my best to stay away from the clingy and loud brat. He tries his best to bother me. At this rate, I'll end up a shrimp and develop frown lines by the time I'm our older brother's age. Ah, my older brother. He isn't the horrifying kind that experimentally pokes the infant all the time for the sake of sating his curiosity. He actually absorbs the warnings our mother give him about caring for babies and successfully supports her. Dear father couldn't do it as much. His work took too much of his time. His name was Itachi, I think. I am aware that it means weasel, so it might actually be a nickname. I don't understand the reference, but it might just be an inside joke. From what I can tell, Itachi goes to school and is actually very smart. Our parents never have anything bad to say about his performance. He was every bit the perfect son they expected him to be. Personally, I'm worried. Itachi doesn't seem to play much. I've never heard him talk about friends either. It was always school or helping out our mother at home. When he takes care of me, I notice faint signs of injury and fatigue. He was good-looking, obedient as a dog, and an exemplary honor student-like kid. I worried that he might be getting bullied. That didn't sit well with me. But with our haggard parents more focused on the new arrivals, they can't do much about it. Especially not when he seems pretty good at hiding the injuries and keeping quiet about them. Our mother was a beautiful young woman. It's a little disconcerting that she doesn't look a day older than 20. But then, she's Asian. Asians have the tendency to make people question whether or not they were immortal. I don't actually know her name. Itachi only ever calls her Ka-san. Our father isn't always around to clarify on that end. People rarely talk past concise sentences around here. It's kind of annoying. How else do they expect me to learn? I get the impression that she isn't used to being a housewife. Maybe that's why our father works double time. Maybe that's why Itachi knows how to take care of himself so well. That's 2 extra mouths to feed, my more than likely pricey medical bills, the loss of his wife's contribution to the budget, and 9 months of her unusual cravings and doubled appetite. I mentally cringe. Father is very strict. I can imagine my future already. He's also seriously straight-laced and seemingly without a sense of humor. It's like he's military. Actually, from my repeated sightings of swords and knives on his person, as well as all-nighters with an ungodly amount of paperwork, he might actually be some sort of police detective. They use swords instead of guns here. So retro. But cool. Like Yakuza, but none of the yelling and the needless violence. Guns wouldn't be very effective in the countryside if it was too hard to maintain and supply with magazines anyways. Not to mention, the sound carries for miles. Father would practically be screaming, "I'm right here, kill me." Economically speaking, it was a good idea. Though, if something big happened here, they might potentially be defenseless. So, I'm torn on that end. That was how it was with this sort of family. Itachi was quiet and did all that he was told. Father always seemed to be swamped with work. Mother was always too occupied with whatever's wrong with Sasuke to attend to me directly. How nice to see that my new family is so stable. Read. Sarcasm. It was funny though as I skimmed through my library of past life memories. My twin's name is Sasuke. My older brother is called Itachi. I don't know mother's name yet, but I'm pretty sure our father is named Fugaku. Just take me out of the picture, they'd be mirroring the Uchihas from the Naruto anime. It's so funny I sometimes end up giggling because of it. Never would I laugh about it again when I realized the truth. I froze. It was just the only thing I could do. Neither our mother or father were around and Sasuke kept on crying. In a way, it was relieving. It told me he was there and alive. I felt tremors and surmised that there must be an earthquake. That could explain the noise and the evacuation that seems to be going on. In a logical point of view, that would be what I'd settle on. But, I doubted it. I completely trashed that theory. No way in hell this was a fucking earthquake. Itachi carried Sasuke and some older woman rocked me frantically, as if hoping for a reaction. The whole time, she seemed to be terrified and flustered. But, I doubt she was as terrified as me. I was drowning again. Or, I wasn't. I knew how to breathe in the air now. I could breathe, but I also couldn't. I don't even know if my heart is still beating. There was sheer terror tainting the atmosphere. It just popped up all of a sudden and made me freeze despite feeling like I was being roasted alive. It was like a miasma of malice creeping at me, burning my soul and shorting my conscious mind's coherence. It was like that day, but more. Even a flashback was more preferable. This was fear. I barely registered anything. I was just stiff as a rock and not making a sound. Even with my eyes closed, I could feel it. Such raw anger and hate and pure evil and an overwhelming pressure of knowing it can kill me just by being. This isn't some natural disaster. It wasn't something explainable. It was a demon breathing into the world its brand of horror. It could have been fire personified. It could be hell on earth in a literal sense. It was supernatural. Given my scientifically unexplainable existence, I'm not quick to doubt that such creatures could exist. That would make me a hypocrite. But I still didn't know what it was exactly. I couldn't put a name or a face to it. I was left in the arms of some person I don't even know, hiding in a dark bunker sort of place while that thing that I don't know what was out there. That just made it scarier. It eventually disappeared. It felt like an eternity when it was there. When it was gone, it felt like time stopped. What was it? Why did it come here? What did it come for? Will it be back? If so, when? Questions ran in my mind, forming around my tightly woven fear and caging me in it. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to open up my mind, my senses, again. Not if it could still be lurking out there somewhere. I understand now why people of the Dark Ages were so scared and paranoid. A wise person once said people fear what they don't understand. Those words have never felt truer. Gradually, I eased up from that fear, but nothing's ever been the same since then. I used to pull away from Sasuke. Now, I can't help but whimper if he isn't by my side. Mother and father weren't the ones with me when it all happened. I kept asking, where were you? But I knew that there was no point. When something like that happens, trying to find other people like family is harder than locating a button in a beach. Everything is just consumed by the chaos. One day, our family left for a town-wide wake. I was far from okay, but I wasn't exactly being noisy. From what I know, babies tend to be noisy in funerals, crying all the while. This one was just dead quiet as everyone listened to the eulogy of the collective victims of the disaster. I saw for the first time the world that cradled me. Mountains that resemble Mount Rushmore, but not. A ruined traditional village barely back on its feet. Long lines of morose people. No one was crying, but everyone grieved. A familiar symbol carved on tiny metal plates worn by my father and his men. And many more were adorned by that snail-like swirl that's supposed to be some leaf. All of it made me feel cold. It made me feel like gritting my non-existent teeth and scream. It made me feel like I was stabbed through the heart over and over. I'm in Konoha. I'm in this horrible war-torn world where shit hit the fan more often than not. I'm in a world doomed to great pain, tragedy, and a great world war. And I'm an Uchiha. Shit, Uchiha Itachi is my brother. He's the tragic hero. The boy who will once murder his entire clan. Sasuke is my twin. The one who will betray the village for the sake of power and killing Itachi. The one who turns into a monster. A loose cannon easily pointed towards others when the villains want him to rain chaos down on everyone. My mother and father were the head honchos of the Uchiha clan. They're the ones who'll organize a coup d'état in Konoha that Danzo reacted to with extreme prejudice. This can't be happening. Is Sakuya going to be okay? Itachi asked. I only caught a couple of words from that, but I got the gist of it. It made my heart ache. This sweet little boy, this kind older brother of mine, he will one day be forced to become a murderer. He will murder the entire clan to save Sasuke. And it would have been a failure because all it does is drown him in darkness. But what does that mean for me? She'll be fine. We'll take her to a doctor. I'm sure, she'll be strong. Just like before. My mother spoke words that were probably meant to comfort. Unfortunately, her voice was wavering and cracking. She was very scared. She held me close and I could feel her light trembling. Our kind mother will be dead. I might end up dead. There was never any mention of Sasuke having a sister. But what if it wasn't put into plot because it was unnecessary? Because it was irrelevant to the story proper? Even if Itachi might spare me, for being his sister, everyone will still die. Everyone. Mother. Father. That lady that carried me to the shelters that appeared to be my aunt. I'll lose everything again in a single night. It won't be fire this time. It will be blood. On my brother's hands. And Sasuke. He'll turn into a monster. No. Why me? Why this? Why do I have to suffer this kind of torment? Why give me this just when I was finally warming up to them? Why give me a family at all if they're just going to be torn away from me again? Why put me here in this world? Why? I cried without making a sound. I remained stiff as the tears flow out of my eyes. Why? It's not fair. Summer has finally come. Sweet vacation. Sweet homecoming. I still can't believe I made it past my first year of college. My folks don't live in the city, so I had to travel home to get there. My cousin picked me up in his car since we were both in the city and we went together. I wasn't even a little bit embarrassed that he caught me pigging out on ice cream while watching anime on my laptop in my pigsty of a studio apartment. He wasn't any better in my opinion. His car reeked of alcohol, but he didn't seem to be intoxicated. No doubt, he already went partying with his friends. Plus, he stunk of cigarettes. I hate that smell. We didn't go to the same university, but we shared that feeling of accomplishment over surviving a year of college. Or, in his case, another year. Yep, definitely something to celebrate about. We were also a little close. I guess that has to do with how I was his only cousin near his age. His father had been, to put it lightly, an orphan, so our side of the family was all he knew. Another thing I liked about my cousin was that we were both anime fans, sort of. Granted, he wasn't as big on it as I am, but when I talk about it, he doesn't give me a condescending look that implies something about my maturity. It really sucks when other people say that anime are cartoons that are for children. The damn hypocrites have the gall to call on wonderful writing and excellent plot development full of angst, pain, and harsh truths when they watch freaking Disney in the theaters 10 to 15 times. I don't rage about it though. I'm better than that. I just find companionship in people who understand. Check my bag. I have something for you in there. He told me. I looked towards him warily. He's a bit of a joker sometimes. If he's pulling one on me, I'm not going to get caught in it. What's with that look? I'm not messing with you. Despite his words, he laughed at my reaction. Well, it did tell me that he wasn't lying much better than a poker face would. Fine, I'll check your vomit bag. I grumbled. It was a perfectly reasonable adjective in my opinion. He had that camo-style backpack since his high school freshman year, and it stunk like a rat died in it too. The thing practically begged to be in retirement. Then, I blinked in mild surprise. He got me a present. My birthday already passed and he wasn't able to give it to me because, well, exams. We both had our priorities. Really? You sure took your time. I told him dryly. What kind of thank you is that? He asked me. But, either way, we were both grinning. He wasn't the gift-giving type. He usually just treated me something I wanted on my birthday, usually food. He was cheap like that. This was a break from the unspoken tradition. And, I'm actually kind of happy he bothered. He got me manga. It was Naruto. To be honest, I haven't really been updated on this series. I like Naruto, yes. But, I'll admit that I haven't been looking it up lately. I mean, the fillers just keep on coming. I've been reading up on Bleach though. I hated the last anime arc, but I like the development in the manga. There's also the growing notoriety of Kinoku Nasu's works in anime and manga adaptations that has been filling the void the childhood anime left behind. He said something about it being finally finished and would ever. That intrigued me as I was under the impression that it would never end with all the fillers. Like Detective Conan, I think I already read through some of these. I said to him as I inspected the volume. I wasn't too surprised to see familiar pages on the first part. Not the ending, he said in a sing-sang voice. He was right. The ending was all that mattered. I could find it online by now, but having the actual manga in my hand sort of gives it a different feel. Like reading a novel. At the very least, I don't have to worry about poor internet connection anymore. Whatever. But since you're being so kind, I might just lend you my new Fate Stay Night game. I told him. He made a confused face. Fates. I heard that was a hentai game. He said slowly. I gave him a flat look. Of course that's what he heard about it. I'm talking about the re-released version for PS2, dumbass. Sorry, I haven't watched the anime to that yet. I've been getting into Fox's new DC series, he said. DC TV series. I've actually been watching Arrow. I was planning on seeing The Flash too because that one crossover episode intrigued me. While I infected Cousin Deer with anime mania, he infected me with comic mania. It wasn't too dissimilar. There were plenty of comic works that were mentally challenging enough for my taste. I liked the material on Batman the most. We are such nerds. Well, we have all summer. I reminded him playfully. It was a plan, not a very admirable or social plan. But, it was something on our to-do list for this vacation. When we got home, our folks were all there ready for us. We even ate out together, as family, and stuffed ourselves silly in some diner I honestly don't remember being there before. I also learned that my sister was dating our neighbor, childhood friend. That was a surprise. No, really. I had no idea, and we actually chat online almost every day. I was angry at first since she didn't tell me. But then, I couldn't stay angry forever. I knew the guy. He was a good kid. If anything, the horrifying one in the relationship would be my sister. I kind of pity him. Then came Saturday. It was a perfect day to laze about. I had no classes to worry about and was perfectly contented to sleep in. I had my cousin's gift with me, the Naruto manga's final volume in English translation. I debated over reading it or sleeping more. I chose the latter option. I could always read it later. Fire. There was no later. Later was half-consciously crawling out of the heat and banging on a jammed door. Later was hearing screams of fear and pain on top of my own from all around me. Later was the sound of sirens and the unforgiving flames and the pandemonium spilling into the streets. There was terror. There was pain. There was fear that my perfectly average and normal life was going to abruptly end, just like that. I thought, this is it. It's all over. I was choking on smoke and probably crying my eyes out as I suffocated. I was still awake when the fire crawled all over my body. I was still screaming when I fell as I lost my strength. I think I was still screaming as I died, just without the actual sounds. I died trapped alone and being burned alive. I cried myself awake. It was more a scream as it lasted only a few seconds. I found myself panicking when I didn't recognize where I was. But I did recognize my immobility and the odd something in the air that I always felt weird with. It served as a reminder. I was a baby. I was Uchiha Sakuya. It wasn't the dark comforting room I regularly slept in now. And Sasuke was not clinging relentlessly to my arm. He wasn't here. There was no one here. I cried long and hard but no one was coming. Then, I saw a familiar figure of white, though much clearer now. I was taken out of whatever they put me in and placed on some table, like a lab specimen. There were odd writings on it and it smelt strongly of blood and ink. I whimpered and felt cold. I couldn't move. I didn't understand why I felt like I was dying until something was forced into me. It was so sudden, without warning. I cried in shock. The nurse, or doctor, was taken aback by my negative reaction. But he still went on with it anyways. Albeit, a little gentler this time. I tried to remind myself of what was going on. I was in the Naruto world. His hand which forced the something into me was glowing green. He was healing me. The something was chakra. It explained a lot to me. Allowed me to rationalize. I'm in Konoha's hospital. He's a doctor. This is medical ninjutsu. He's helping me. The fact that I couldn't feel the constant warm weirdness within me now suggests that I might have just nearly off-ed myself in my sleep again. No wonder I'm in the hospital. I was put in a familiar feeling incubator that, now that I see it clearer, appeared to be covered in writing. Seals. Fuinjutsu. Oh, so that's why there weren't many machines before. They didn't need them. Why would they when they have seals that do the same thing? That's interesting. I was put under observation. This gave me the much needed time off from the Uchiha that I really needed. I need to calm down and think. Okay, so, I'm not on Earth. Or I'm on an Earth that doesn't call itself that. I'm not sure what they call this world but I'm pretty sure it isn't Naruto. It's a nice way to differentiate though. So, Earth and Naruto universe. Or Naruverse, for short. Kind of like the Nasu-verse. I just have to wonder. What sort of messed up reincarnation process involves multiple worlds anyway? Let alone fictional ones? Or was that really just how it worked? There were a lot of religions that tried to explain the concept of death. I know. I've read about some of them. But for the truth to be something closer to a self-insert fanfiction, that was just sad. It felt a little too much like The Matrix. Who's to say that the world I used to live in was a fictional work of some sort in another world? It could have been a book here. At this point, anything was possible. Infinite possibilities could mean infinite worlds, which could mean that there's no such thing as a fictional world. It sounds so multiverse, like DC. I'm willing to take that theory into the fold if I can rationalize this. But, why did I end up here? Is this some sort of joke? For the longest time since being reborn, I had a dream about my other. It was a dream about my death. Not exactly fun, especially when I still have no fucking idea how things went from peaceful morning to fiery death. And I'll never know too. Not if I'm not even back on my world. But, is that really true? What if this is all just some elaborate world I constructed and I'm in a coma? I mean, that freaking manga was the last thing I was thinking about. It can't be a coincidence. No, I'm pretty sure I died. Even if I survived being in that state, it'd be more merciful to just let me go. That pain went beyond third-degree burns. And, that crushing feeling was not a figment of my imagination. I don't know if anyone else from my family survived or if I was the only one. Either way, they were all gone now. It didn't matter because I'll never find them ever again. It was a cold, harsh truth that stamped a sense of finality on it. It hurt. I should have just read that damn manga and shrugged off my cat-like morning lethargy. Who knew that manga could have been the one thing that saved my life? At the very least, I wouldn't have been trapped when the fire kicked in. I would have noticed. Maybe then, I'd still be there with them. But, no use crying over spilled milk. The doctor came back while I was in the middle of my musings. He gave me a frown and did stuff to the seal on my little box. He put me in it and I instantly felt sleepy even with chakra being forced into my body. This time, I didn't reject it. I still found it weird, but I knew it was a necessity. I was nowhere near in peak health. I can't believe I went and forced out all my chakra over a nightmare. I should be more careful. This is life-threatening stuff. I don't want to die in my sleep again. Fuck no. There, that's a good girl, I heard him say. I actually understood that fully for once. It's ironic that I'm getting better and better at this language thing much faster in this kind of place than my own home. I had months there and barely had any progress. Then again, barely anyone ever talked, except my new mother. That's right, I have a new family. It's the fucking Uchiha clan. The one that's fated to get wiped out to its last 2 members. I feel so psyched. I'm pretty sure I'm a new element to this world. So, it's not necessarily the same as the story. Still, the possibility that I'll end up dead in the near future is running strong. No way I'm going to let that happen. I'll try to bring change. Maybe, if I can prevent the Uchiha's attempted coup, I can save my new family. I can keep my small new world. This isn't me trying to be a hero. This is me being selfish. I don't want to lose my family all over again. I have no idea how to do that though. I'm no politician, and I'm a freaking baby. How am I supposed to save an entire clan from extinction as a baby? Well, I'm not even a year old. Sasuke had been, what? 7? 8? The massacre is still years away. Itachi's still an innocent 5-year-old. I can still fix this. I just had to figure out how. I'm taken back home and I feel like it's been ages since I last saw it. It probably was. I can sit up now. Crawl too, just a little. The new revelations prompted me to reassess every observation I made here. Father was not a hard-working police detective struggling to feed a family of 5. He was just a workaholic burdened with the many responsibilities of being the Uchiha's clan head. My analysis on my mother was pretty spot on. Only, I never thought that her job had been being a Jonin kunoichi. It didn't even cross my mind. Itachi was not a bullied kid. I'm still so embarrassed having ever assumed that. The injuries were product of extensive clan training. Most of all, we were so not dirt poor. Mother became a full-time housewife despite being Jonin for me and Sasuke while father works even more. Itachi isn't a rare face, but I noticed that his time for us lessened significantly compared to before. Mother and father try not to talk about sensitive stuff in front of me. I know they've done it at least once or twice before, but not anymore. I think they're trying to keep the image of stress and disunity out of the baby's eyes. That was actually responsible parenting. You don't want kids to see you fighting, even if lightly. That's going to leave an imprint in their minds, affect their personality development. Kids are very sensitive to emotion. I know Sasuke is at least, and I do get vague impressions of what's going on by reading body language on top of trying to learn what the hell they're saying. Besides, with how sensitive I am to chakra, emotions are practically visible to me in the auras. I figured that if I'm going to be a ninja, learning about these things early on should make things easier for me. I cannot get to the more technical stuff yet because I can't read even if my life depended on it. But, I do know things on my own. If we do get technical, the definition of chakra isn't all that different from the definition of prana in the Fate series. Chakra is the mixture of physical and mental energies channeled through the body and used to perform jutsus. To me, it's the weird liquid tapeworm sensation that I can somehow control. So, I guess I have a foothold to start with. I think of chakra control exercises. The ones I remember are hard to try. I can't exactly run up trees without being able to catch myself. Not to mention, jumping into water might just cause my parents to lock me up in the nursery until I relearn how to swim. Sasuke would hate me for that. He likes it when mother takes us to the lake to refresh. There were chakra strains. One would need a good degree of control to make and hold such things. But I don't even know where to begin on that one. I tried using mental imagery to get somewhere, but it didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to. So, that was out. But there was another option. It was something that came to me while I was mulling over that dead end. My mind trailed to the Hyuga. They control the density of their chakra and insert them like needles into tenketsu points. I knew how to expel chakra and hold it already. That's the Jukin, or gentle fist. There's nothing gentle about it. More like subtle killing fist. Of course, that kind of precision control is beyond me. I'm a newbie at this. How am I supposed to know how to change the density of my chakra? But I did manage to make my blanket seemingly float off my hands by expelling chakra outward through a fixed output. It's like a magic trick wherein the hidden fan is replaced by chakra. So cool. Then, I learned how to do the opposite. I could make them stick, like static friction but without all the stinging. I learned how to do it with semi-permeable material until I could make it stick strong enough it might as well be magnetized to my hand. So there was that option. So, I practiced with my blankets, with paper, with random other things that I could get my hands on. Even the walls. I got so absorbed in it that I almost forgot to stop myself and conserve energy. I slept through the entire day after using so much chakra. I felt so tired. But the next day, I practiced again, more mindful of my chakra levels this time. Come on, it's chakra. It's me waking up one day and being told that I got superpowers. I have got to get a handle on it. It's too cool not to mess around with. Eventually, I graduated from sticking and floating stuff to folding up stuff. I could have practiced crawling up the walls Spider-Man style, but I don't think that's a good idea. I might just send my parents into hysteria or worse. I don't really want to be labeled as another Uchiha prodigy. That comes with so many strings attached. If there was one thing I learned from high school, it was that anonymity was key. Being noticed could wind up throwing you to the metaphorical sharks and getting mauled daily as the lowest on the food chain. I think I was imbuing my chakra into things and then manipulating them for the folding stuff. It didn't work much if the object was too dense and heavy and if I wasn't holding onto them. Cotton was surprisingly hard. Paper was even worse. Strings were easy though. They were like secondary limbs without bones completely enslaved to do my bidding. Ironically, yarn wasn't as receptive. I was able to fold up some napkins with much focus and effort too. It was much harder. It took hours before I got to do it and hours more before I could regain my bearings. It tired me out a lot more than sticking my hands to the walls did. Sasuke was always there to watch. He doesn't try them and I make sure he doesn't. He's just watching. It was entertainment for him. I don't think he even understands that I wasn't actually playing with him. But his baby cheering did give some moral support. It felt that way. I know I'd have to be careful. We'll be 2 years old soon and I don't want him to accidentally hinting at some of our games. He might actually start wanting to try them too. Mother eventually figured out that I liked reading time. Sasuke isn't as thrilled with it, but he liked looking at the colorful pictures. I was the opposite. I focused on the words and tried desperately to match the corresponding sounds and words to the characters. Japanese is a language I tried to learn before. I got katakana and hiragana easily enough. There were some confusion, but since they were mostly sound-based, I didn't have as much trouble with them except for determining proper use. Kanji though. Kanji was a nightmare. I could list down all the simple kanji I can get for elementary school level and I still wouldn't have enough pages in a college notebook. Kanji could be interpreted in so many ways, could have different meanings, or could have another kanji it shares a meaning with, etc. etc. It was difficult if you didn't grow up with it. On top of that, there were thousands of them. But I'm growing up with it now. I'm trying my best to learn how to read so that I can finally get my hands on the more important stuff. It's slow going though. There's a huge difference between children's books and academy workbooks. And mother doesn't read to us as much as I'd like her to. So, as soon as I learned how to walk again, I found myself pestering Itachi to read to me. No matter what he did, I could always find him. I think it became something of a game between us where he'd read to me if he lost. He usually did. Father was a hopeless cause. He wasn't going to read me anything unless it was pertinent to his job. I don't want a repeat experience of him reading the laws and regulations of Konoha as enforced by the police force. I had to be careful though. I couldn't give them the indication that I actually understood. I couldn't have Itachi read to me useless stuff too. I paw at his workbooks. I drag history books and scrolls over to him. I even demand him to read me his homework. He probably thinks I just like being read to. Father and mother doesn't scold him on it and make him stop because I was technically making him study. It was my victory. It was the most successful venture I've gotten yet. I found more technical explanations on chakra, ninjutsu, etc. I learned about more chakra control exercises that I could use. I even learned about the theory behind changing chakra density. I was wrong in my assumptions before that his time off from us was him going to school. No, he was training. Now, he's going to school. I'm pretty sure he'll be graduating within the year too. That's why he studies on the more advanced stuff. Bonus for me, by the time I was 3, I was already secretly practicing on sticking stuff to my feet and trying to make a successful chakra strain. At this point, Sasuke was more intent in stealing Itachi's attention than focus on my activities. I didn't really mind. I could already read to some extent on my own by that point. Also, Uchiha Shisui seems to be more interesting. I try to corner him whenever he comes around to fetch Itachi. He's fast and stealthy, but he's always surprised when I actually find him. But I never actually catch him. I think Itachi told him about our games. I think I should improve on my stealth more so that running away from me isn't as easy. Overall, my childhood was surprisingly carefree. I mean, I usually got away with a lot of things. My parents and brother more or less spoiled me. Maybe a little too much compared to Sasuke, who gives me jealous eyes sometimes. It was not at all what I expected when I first realized just what family I was born into. It could be that they just approve of my inquisitiveness or they don't find anything wrong in my behavior. Was Itachi really that odd as a baby that I am suddenly normal? Be that as it may, I had a sense of freedom that I didn't think I'd have. And I'm not below exploiting it. Sakuya tilde, what are you doing? Asked Sasuke. Reading. He pouted at me. You're always reading. Why don't we play instead? It's more fun. He whined. And this is the kid that turns into a revenge-driven automaton. I mentally roll my eyes. This is fun. I learn things. This way, things will be easier when we're in the academy. I told him. Then, I paused. That sounded a little too much like me being Itachi. Going by the expression on Sasuke's face, he agreed. I sighed. But I guess we could play today. He beamed at me. Sasuke and I are the only kids in the clan that are around our age. We don't leave the compound much either. So, we're each other's only playmates. And, I've been ignoring him a lot lately. Let's go. I already have the shuriken. Whoever hits the bullseye wins, he said to me. I blinked. That's right. Neither of us know any actual kids games here either. I've introduced him to hide and seek before, but he hates it because I always win that. Truthfully, it isn't as fun anymore if I can sense where he is all the time. We've got puzzles, but those are individual games. Not exactly fun for two kids unless we make it a race to see who gets the puzzles done first. The shuriken were blunted, like everything else that's used for training. If anyone got hit with them, it would only bruise or graze skin. It's obviously bad if it gets into anyone's eye, but that's why they're not treated as toys. They're training instruments. The standard rules for training hazards is taught even to children, so we were careful to keep an eye out for that. But then, for Sasuke, they might as well be toys. We practiced and, to my annoyance, he was winning. I wasn't a very good shot. Father doesn't take me training nearly as much as he does with Sasuke. I actually have to catch him first before he does. I don't know if it's a East thing, but it pisses me off sometimes. That doesn't mean I'm completely behind though. I don't actually make throws that miss the target. I've been training on my own too. I just don't hit as closely to the bull's eye compared to Sasuke. And when he hit it, he makes a victory cry. Yes, I win. That means a lot to him. I beat him in almost everything. Even if I train less, I still manage to beat him in spars, and that's because none of his stances are ever right or stable enough. That mostly has to do with my foreknowledge of how to fight. And physics. Yes, you did. I wasn't even close. I said, I'm not going to be a sore loser over the truth. He was decidedly much better than me in Shuri Kenjutsu. You want to go again? He asked me. I'm not eager to get crushed. Why don't we practice on Kenjutsu instead? Father doesn't cover that as much. I offered. He looked hesitant. I took Arnis as my class for PE. It's a Filipino martial art that Hollywood abuses for their fight choreography. It looks so awesome on screen and even more awesome when you learn how to do them. I think Arnis and Eskrima were the same thing too. I'm not too sure about that part. And no more sticks, he said sullenly. He wasn't that eager to get crushed either. Arnis was a martial art originally meant for twin swords. But for some reason, bladed martial arts were purged by invading parties by making them illegal, so the practitioners went from sword to bamboo sticks. It was still just as deadly. That short history lesson actually made it even more interesting in my opinion, so I was willing to learn at the time. When I picked it, I was thinking about how it was unique and something I didn't already know about. I didn't even realize that it was martial arts until I got my equipment. But it was still fun. My classes weren't as intensive as an actual class for martial arts, but I learned how to defend myself with and without a stick. Our instructor was especially adamant about the unarmed combat with the girls because he was teaching us self-defense. It wasn't like when we got mugged or assaulted, we'd be ready with sticks. I never actually used them, but I am glad that I took them seriously. They are so useful now and decidedly much fresher than my days as a little taekwondo baby. All I remember from back then were some of the weird sayings of the teacher and how to kick someone right. You're right, I don't feel like getting bruised up today either. I shrugged. He looked so relieved. Let's go look for Shisui-ni-san then. I heard he's here today. I added. He looked flustered again. This time, I didn't give him the chance to say no. Shisui was a lot more fun to be with than any of the other stiffs in this stupid compound. If we were going to play like children, we'd play like children. I was wandering around Konoha being completely lost. I totally underestimated the size of the village. It was no freaking village, it was a city. It was almost nighttime and I have yet to find the right forest that housed my clan's corner of the village. How did I get into this mess? That's easy. I got a little too adventurous. I asked for permission to go out and mother easily gave it to me. I don't think she realized that I wasn't talking about wandering around the compound. I wanted to go out and see Konoha. A small part of me was even hoping to get a glimpse of Naruto somewhere, but no such luck. It was like he didn't even exist. I was so close to crying when I saw how low the sun was already. I stuck to the forest edges hoping to find the familiar path back home, but I don't even think I'm in the right corner of the village. The trees are all wrong. They were more dark. It didn't really look that different compared to most of Konoha's forests. But there was something about the place that sets me off as weird and chilling. I thought it was the chakra in the air at first, but that was just part of it. I guess it was the mood. It was a dark forest. Then, all of a sudden, I heard a broken cry. I spun around so fast, I should have gotten whiplash. Then, I felt silly when I saw the cause. It was a semi-grown deer that had its antlers caught on some low-hanging branches. It stopped struggling when it noticed me. Color me curious, but I think it's actually glaring at me, as if telling me to go away. Of course, it's a deer. And we're in a creepy-seeming forest, which was something considering that Konoha was littered with trees. So, I might have just imagined it. Beyond that, it was actually pretty cute. Its problem looked pretty bad from my point of view. Those antlers were stuck. But another look over suggested that it would be easy to get rid of by pulling the tree branch upward. So, I climbed the tree nearest. I had my chakra help my hands and feet stick because, admittedly, I'm not sure I won't fall. I was a city girl once, not a hiker. I don't have much experience climbing trees. The deer made grunts at me that might have been meant to scare me. Under normal circumstances, a 3-year-old like me probably would have been scared off. But I know it's just scared of me. The branch was thinner than I thought. It wouldn't hold me, that was for sure. But I tried anyways. I almost fell a lot. The fear of cracking my skull on the unforgiving ground delayed me plenty. I didn't even notice the time that it was taking me to try and free the deer. It was already calm seeing as it figured out what I was actually trying to do. It was unusually smart. Then, I was caught. What are you doing here? I heard a small but tired voice echo from below. It was a boy with a high spiky ponytail. He was probably my age going by appearance alone. Oh, and he was walking with a bunch of other deer. Was my smart answer. He analyzed the situation with a sharp eye and sighed. He grabbed a pebble and threw it at the branch with precision and power. That was definitely Shuri Kenjutsu application right there. The small tangling part of the branch broke off and the deer was able to break free. I didn't think of that. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous, he said to me chidingly as I climbed down. I felt defeated for some reason. Doesn't that go for you too? I said to him with mild bitterness. I was outdone and embarrassed by a child. It hurt my pride a little. I live here, he drawled. I blinked as I digested that new information. The Nara forest is restricted to outsiders for a reason. Don't wander in here again, troublesome girl, he said with a slightly mocking tone. But this time, I actually understood why he was angry at me. Nara. This was the Nara forest. It was the forbidden forest of Konoha, technically speaking. Like with Harry Potter, it never did strike me as anything special when it was mentioned in the series. It was just the place where Shikamaru buried Hidan alive. But now that I'm actually here, I kind of get why it was off limits. Oh, there has to be a story there. But before that, this kid was a Nara. He had that pineapple hair. He had that look of disinterest practically cemented on his face. And the deer, oh. Sorry, I was just lost. I admitted sheepishly. Now, I don't feel too bad about losing. He was Nara Shikamaru, the real genius, my favorite character. Oh my god, I feel like I just met my idol. Oh, hell, I am meeting my idol. No wonder. Come with me, I'll lead you out, he gestured. I bounded over faster than he could breath. Shit, that must have looked a little too overeager. Ah, well, I'm walking with Shikamaru. I didn't actually catch your name. I'm Sakuya, I tell him. I decided against saying my surname. I didn't want him to think too much about my background. I wanted to talk to him as me, not as an Uchiha. I feel so glad that I'm not wearing anything with the clan symbol on. Nearly all of our clothes had them, and I especially rummaged for a shirt without it when I planned to go out today. I don't know if he's even aware about the political structure of the village involving my clan. He's smart and his father's the Jonin commander, so the chances were pretty high. But then, he was also 3 years old. Shikamaru, he said. Thanks, Shikamaru, for helping me out. I really appreciate it. He just shrugged. He showed no signs of interest in talking any further. I felt a little intimidated. I wasn't bad at making friends per se. I wouldn't say that I was good at it either. I was more in the middle. I was awkward with people I can't connect with, which was most girls too. I needed something to help me connect with others. A topic of interest like political happenings, price rates, celebrity scandals, homework, our teachers and fellow classmates, anime, etc. I had absolutely no idea what to talk about with a 3-year-old Shikamaru. Oh, there were many things that come to mind. I wanted to ask about his shadow jutsus because I actually find them cool. I wanted to ask about strategies and his apparent future with a troublesome wife. The last movie more or less spoiled to me that he's marrying Tamari. Knew it. But he knows none of these things yet. I'd be really creepy if I bombarded him with questions anyways. Fine, I'm a fan. But I'm not idiotic enough not to know that he doesn't deal with fangirls well. He'd probably get an aneurysm or something, and Ino would never live it down. I eyed the deer, or fawn, now that I see him in comparison to the older deer. It was walking alongside me calmly, as if saying that you're okay in my book. I felt a little happy about that moral support, even if it was from a fawn. Does that make me weird? Why does he have such big antlers if he's still little? I asked naturally. It relieved me that there was actually something that we could talk about. The silence, in this forest, was unnerving. I swear, this place was alive and had eyes. It was just screaming at me to get out already. We breed our deer and Rikumaru's one of our best young. He's the same age as I am, explained Shikamaru. That was a lot more than I expected. But it did mean that I was on the right pace. Oh, it's because the medicine is from the antlers, right? I asked for confirmation. This time, he actually looked at me with mild interest. Yeah, the Nara make most of Konoha's medicine. It's a pain, but someone has to do it. Might as well be our clan, he said. The unspoken because we're the leading experts hang in the air. That's cool, I said. Truthfully, I wanted to be a doctor when I was little. Sadly, I wasn't very good at the medical stuff. I clicked more with math and computers because I understood them better. I think it was a genetic thing. Both my parents were engineers. Or maybe, going by that logic, it was the home culture that influenced me. Ah, whatever. Shikamaru didn't lead me out the same way I got in. He led me to his home where his mother was at. He was smart enough to figure out that a little kid that wandered into their forest wouldn't be anywhere near her parent. Otherwise, the adult would have warned her off. I feel like an idiot. Oh, you poor thing. You must be cold. It's alright. It's not really that cold yet, Oba-san. I said. Come on. I'll have some soup in you first before we get you home, alright? Nara Yoshino was sweet and caring and nothing like I imagined. Then again, I'm a strange little girl who ended up getting lost. She still chided Shikamaru for responding to the call all alone. That was interesting, but I didn't bother ask. I figured it was a clan thing. Ninja clans tend to be touchy about their secret stuff. You're Makoto's daughter, aren't you? What are you doing so far from home? She asked. I was surprised that she recognized me very quickly as the Uchiha's girl. It surprised me more than the first name referencing of my mother. I didn't know I was very recognizable. Mother doesn't really bring me and Sasuke out of the compound. Then again, it could have been my features. I find it that most of us siblings inherited our mother's looks. Mother had to have been famous at some point as a female Jonin Uchiha. There weren't many female Jonin. I wanted to play outside. I guess I wandered too far. Oto-sama won't be happy with me, I said with slight fear. Oh, I am so getting grounded for this. Shikamaru gave me an inquisitive look. I guess the child act doesn't really fool him. We met in slightly amusing circumstances and he knows that I'm smarter than that and that I regret nothing. But, he's not going to voice it out. It'd be too troublesome to. He better be. You shouldn't be out alone. What if someone snatched you up? Yoshino said with a motherly version of a patronizing tone. I'm sorry for going into the forest. I didn't know. That was no lie. How was I supposed to know it was the Nara forest? I've never even gone into Konoha until today. Oh, it's alright. The deer usually scare off kids before they get in too deep. She said. Huh, I didn't know that. Maybe that's why Rikumaru-chan was trying to scare me. I mean, using common sense, a deer wouldn't be scared of a little girl it was literally taller than. Then again, he's a pretty young buck. He was a buck, right? I don't know how to go home, I said hesitantly. That was hard to admit. But, I'm not really an Uchiha with pride issues. I like to think I'm not. I'm willing to ask for help if it benefits me. Don't worry dear, you'll be home soon. Just rest up and get warm first, okay? She said kindly. I nodded. She left me to my soup and presumably went off to inform people before my father sends out the entire police force to look for me. As soon as she was out of sight, I foregone all sense of decorum and gulped down the soup from the bowl like it was juice. I left the bowl on the table because one couldn't actually get it into the sink without risk of breaking it. I left it neatly and jumped off the chair to look around. You had her all fooled. Shikamaru drawled. I looked towards him and saw that he was torn between bitter and impressed. I wasn't lying. I shrugged. I was probably grinning too, but whatever. I eyed the shogi board he was busying himself with. It looked like he was playing with himself half-heartedly as he listened in on us. Isn't that game normally played by two people? I asked. He shrugged. It's not a game that most kids can play. Won't you teach me then? I asked. He eyed me and seriously considered it. Then, he dropped it. Too troublesome. You wouldn't be able to make any half-decent strategy anyways. He said. I felt offense at that. I was a great chess player. What makes you think I can't do strategy? I said competitively. I made sure to pour in enough inflection into my wording to let him know that I didn't like that kind of ism. I'm a Nara, he said. He made it sound like it was the only answer I needed. It probably was, but I'm not going to take that lying down. So, anyone can play a board game, I told him challengingly. He glared at me as if I just said something sacrilegious. If there was one thing I knew about Nara Shikamaru, it was that he lived for shogi and cloud watching. He rearranged the pieces and told me about each piece's moves and the general rules. I got them easily enough. It was a lot like chess with only a few differences. I had trouble at first, but I eventually got a handle on the usable enemy pieces part. I felt a great deal of accomplishment when the game ended. You beat me. He said it like it shouldn't have been possible. And, to be honest, he was a tough opponent. But, I couldn't lose. My pride as a much older woman was at stake. There was no way I was going to allow myself to lose to a 3-year-old. Again, he demanded. With pleasure, I said tauntingly. The one to drop me home had been Shikaku-sama, who was forced to as soon as he got back home. It was clear that he'd do it even if he didn't want to. Yoshino was the real boss in their house. It was so different from my family dynamics, almost reminiscent of my old family. I almost smiled. He showed actual interest in me though. It wasn't an interest born out of my odd emergence in their forest, but rather an interest in how I got Shikamaru on his toes in shogi battles. I won most of the matches. I've been playing chess with my father since I was in grade school, so I know all about strategy games. I wasn't a frequent player anymore by the time I grew up, but that didn't mean I began to suck at it. It wasn't that kind of game. Shogi wasn't all that different. It was a little confusing sometimes, especially with the captured pieces part, but it wasn't that far off. It was still a game of wits and strategy. I should probably teach Sasuke how to play shogi. It will definitely help in his tactical reasoning. Maybe help him be less gullible. He's easy to trick. Sakuya, where were you? We've been worried sick, said mother. I didn't doubt her. She looked like she could use a couple of hours under the sun. Sorry, I went out to play but I got lost. More like, I knowingly slipped out of the compound unnoticed and sped right into Konoha despite the possible consequences that might come out of it. If you wanted to go out, you could have just said something. She looked like she wanted to shake me but couldn't. I really scared them, I reminded myself, 3-year-old. Meanwhile, I caught father having an awkward conversation with Shikaku-sama. He was thanking him for bringing me home, on the surface. I saw a lot of underlying messages there. Looks like it was a pride thing. Uchihas have this unusual difficulty in saying they're sorry. It stems from the fact that apologizing meant they were in the wrong. They had too much pride for that. Now, Sahikaku-sama was not only the head of the Nara clan, he was also Jonin commander. In terms of rank, they probably had equal authority in the village. But, overall, Shikaku-sama had him beat. It would have been fine, all things considered. But, Shikaku-sama was Shikaku-sama. One look at him and you'd doubt that he was actually such an important person. He was laid back and cool and looked like he'd keel over at the slightest breeze. I am also aware that he was a bit of a drunk. Not to mention, his wife had him whipped. Yeah, that was probably what was so difficult to accept. It must kill father that someone like that was Jonin commander. And now, he's in the position to thank this man. Such humiliation. I felt like being a little naughty. Mother, I made a friend today. He taught me how to play shogi. I said cheerily. Oh? Mother looked surprised. Eyes trailed towards the Nara in the room. It was pretty obvious that bringing up the game in the presence of one tends to make them correlative. Shikamaru was the one who found her. I just got back home when they were in their 4th shogi match. Shikaku-sama chuckled. He probably remembered about Shikamaru's look of frustration. I laughed too because it was now on my mind. You think it was funny too, huh? Shikaku-sama said to me. Everyone looked confused. Inside joke. Mother, can I go again tomorrow? I asked. Oh no. You are grounded, young lady. She said sternly. I expected that, but still. I was sort of looking forward to humiliating my favorite Naruto-verse character in his childhood again. That didn't come out right. I'll play shogi with you if you really want it. You could challenge your friend better next time, offered Itachi consolingly. He was a bit too formal about it, as if afraid that I might get offended. Typical Itachi. I muffled a laugh that threatened to get out. They thought I was losing. That was just even funnier than their collective reactions about me being friends with the Nara heir. But, I want to see Shikamaru, I said with real displeasure. It was hard conveying that while trying not to laugh. You can wait till after you're grounded, Sakuya-chan. Shikamaru isn't going anywhere after all. You should know when to listen to your parents. Shikaku-sama reminded me that while somehow not sounding like he was reprimanding me. That was amazing in its own way. He completely subverted the regular defensive behavior of every child to go against instruction. Not that he had that problem with me to begin with. Oh, fine. I answered like it was the most obvious reaction in the world. I made a deep sigh but didn't complain. If they expected me to throw a tantrum, they've got another thing coming. Shikaku-sama left with a lazy wave and I suddenly found myself getting a stern talking to from father and mother. But like I said before, I didn't regret it. My original objective might have been to look for Naruto, but this was much better. My immediate problem was the Uchiha massacre after all. I just got myself a connection with one of the most influential men in clan in Konoha. Talk about lucky. I had to be careful though. Naras are real geniuses. Shikamaru already proved that I might as well be an open book in front of his sharp eyes, and he's 3. I can't just expect to have them wrapped around my finger through cuteness. They'll be decoding my every move and my every words. Around them, I can't afford to slip up. I accept my grounding conditions gracefully. The next day, I found that Itachi was actually planning to keep his word and decided to play shogi with me. Sasuke watched while asking me all about my new friend. The game was not interesting to him in the slightest. He broke my concentration just enough that my playing skill isn't disturbingly good for my age, but not necessarily the bad sort of play expected of a little girl my age either. Itachi didn't play as seriously though. Most likely an effort to keep the game going for much longer. That was essentially an escape from training too. What do you know? He actually had it in him. That childish mischief. Maybe we really are related. I was officially free of being grounded. Sasuke and I prepared bags for our upcoming playdate and waited for our escort. It was a condition that was given us. If we wanted to go out into the village, at least Mother or Shisui should be accompanying us. Mother was going to be helping Father on something with the clan's elder council today, so Shisui ni-san it was. I was actually hoping that it would be her. She and Yoshino could get talking and thereby establish some sort of good relation with each other, and in extension, strengthen the bond between the clans. But it was too much to ask that it would be that simple. Shisui ni wasn't a bad stand-in. He's proof that not all Uchihas are stuck up, along with moi. But if I were to do anything with actual lasting effects, the ones whose eye view need changing has to be my parents as heads of the Uchiha. Politics is such a headache. Itachi and Shisui were sparring right now, so he had to wait. Sasuke wasn't in any hurry though. He practically worshipped the ground Itachi walked on and loved to have this chance. Shisui won. It was pretty obvious right from the start. He was just too fast even for Itachi. He might have had a better chance if he had his Sharingan, but no magic eyes yet for him. No fair. You cheated, accused Sasuke. He was very upset and tried to reason Shisui's ridiculous Shunshin speed as cheating. I should have expected that. Itachi ni may be a prodigy, but Shisui ni's been a ninja for much longer, Sasuke. This was only to be expected. I tried to explain to him. But he was making clones, he reasoned. So that's what it looked like to him, huh? Those were after images, right? Because you were moving so fast. I inquired. You noticed? Shisui was grinning ear to ear. He was obviously loving the praise and rubbing it in for good measure. Don't push your luck, Shisui ni. Itachi's going to surpass you soon enough. I smirked at him. Upon hearing that, Sasuke stopped being upset and started smirking with me. Itachi, why can't you be like the chibis? They've got lots more spunk than you do. Itachi gave him a flat look that more or less translated to whatever. I've gotten Itachi speak pegged down by now, and so did Shisui. No one took offense to the silent reply. In a few more years, or maybe months, the outcome of that match might have ended differently. But now, Shisui dominated. It was refreshing to see that Itachi wasn't the perfection everyone made him out to be. I mean, if anyone was to be rained with praise, it should be Shisui. He was pretty skilled for his age too, and his Mangekyo's ability isn't that simple. Really, it was just his personality that made the others look down upon him, which I think is bullshit. Shisui is awesome. Nay, Shisui ni, how do you move so fast like that? I know it was Shunshin, but none of the other ninja I've seen doing it are nearly as fast as you. I asked. I really wanted to know. I'm aware that I'll probably never be a strong brawler type. But speed is an edge that I might just have in reach. With a pointed look from Itachi, he hesitated to answer that question. Well, the truth is, people underestimate academy basics far too often. Waved off Shisui vaguely. So, brother dear is careful to steer me and Sasuke clear of any jutsus. That was responsible. At our age, we probably don't have nearly enough chakra for actual jutsus. He doesn't want us experimenting on our own. That was good. On the other hand, I felt indignant that he of all people coddled us like this. Fine, be that way. I rolled my eyes. I took his hand and forcefully steered him along. Our plans were now officially proceeding. Shisui was escorting us to the Nara compound for today. Sasuke quickly followed after saying his goodbyes to Itachi. I did my best subtle Itachi speak and conveyed to my older brother just how displeased I was. We will not be playing shogi tonight. And no dango for him. If he was going to try and keep me from my learning, he'd better try and learn a little more about being understanding first. Keeping us from material he already learned at the same age was just him being a hypocrite. We were all kids here. Check, announced Shikamaru. He frowned at the board as if it offended him. You're not playing seriously. He accused me. I suppose he was right. I wasn't as into the game as I could have been. I was still mulling about what Itachi did. Sorry, I'm angry at my brother. Sasuke, who was watching, suddenly turned his head to me in panic. There was confusion and hurt in his eyes, as well as fear. He didn't like fighting with me. Not you, Itachi. He was being a jerk. I clarified. Huh? What did Ni-san do? He sounded confused. He really didn't catch anything. I was just asking Shisui Ni how he could do Shunshin so fast. He didn't have to be so against it. I huffed. But he didn't say anything. Sasuke said, confused. I gave him a flat look and he was immediately sheepish. It's been long established that Itachi and I had a second mode of conversation. Body language. Sasuke wasn't as good at it yet. He's probably just looking out for you. That's what normal people do. Shikamaru said passively. Like, this issue wasn't important to him. It actually wasn't, but people usually try to be sympathetic first. I guess that's Shikamaru. But he was overreacting. You'd think I was asking Shisui Ni about inappropriate material. I huffed. Sasuke looked confused, not understanding the reference, but Shikamaru just shrugged. Huh? Did he get that or what? Stop overthinking it and focus on the game. You're not a challenge otherwise. Pointed out Shikamaru. Wow. All he really wants is to play this game, huh? We rearranged the pieces and restarted. I actually focused this time and tried to think of a good strategy that'll survive Anara. I can't use any of my old ones because he already saw through them. I need to watch out for his knights too. He likes those. Why do you two like this old man game? Only the elders ever play it. Pouted Sasuke. Itachi played it. I pointed out. That's because he promised you he would. Said Sasuke. I could say that Itachi broke his promises all the time, but I decided against it. This is so boring. I thought we'd be playing or something. It's like there's two of you now. Sasuke lied flat on his belly on the wooden patio. He had been looking forward to this. I did warn you it wouldn't be like that. Yeah, but you made a friend. He pouted. He didn't say it, but me and Shikamaru caught the obvious. We were twins and usually shared almost everything. When he found out I had a friend, he wanted to meet that friend too. He wanted to have a friend too. He just didn't expect Shikamaru to be so. Shikamaru. We just have similar interests. I shrugged. Games that require energy are troublesome. I prefer something more mentally challenging. Droned Shikamaru. That earned him a look from Sasuke. Yep. From his point of view, Shikamaru must really look like a second me. But I digress. I am not lazy, not anymore. And he's still much smarter than me, no matter how painful it is to admit. What about your clan training? You're the heir, right? Asked Sasuke. An unfortunate requirement, Shikamaru said bitterly. Itachi trains a lot. Two-san expects nothing less than perfect, and he's just that. Perfect. Sasuke sounded almost bitter. Neither one of us replied. Does Shikaku-sama push you that hard too? He asked directly this time. Shikamaru shrugged concomitantly, preferring to cup his fingers and try to figure out my new defensive formation. It's experimental on my part, so I'm not sure how it'll go. I'm practically baiting him with the obvious hole in my defense. He always compares me to Itachi. I think he's disappointed in me, said Sasuke. I bit my lip when Shikamaru played on the aggressive. He didn't take the bluff. But I didn't set this up to ruin myself. I can still protect the king with the silver general. Neither of you are listening to me. Whined Sasuke. Huh? What? I said, looking towards him. He gave me a particularly nasty scowl. Play with me, Tilda, he demanded from us. Shikamaru made a face of displeasure. I guess as much as he wants to play me, he doesn't like the concept behind the package deal. But it was there. Shikamaru, I think we might be unfair playing like this. I said sheepishly. I didn't feel too proud alienating Sasuke like this either. This is his first chance of making friends outside the clan and I'm ruining it. Fine. One game. What does he want to do? He sighed. I get the feeling that he didn't argue because he knew he was outvoted on this one. Or, he just didn't want to bother. Let's throw kunai, invited Sasuke. Shikamaru gave him a look. That's training, not playing, he said levelly. He liked the idea even less. It's not? Sasuke gave him a look of confusion. Shikamaru then stared at us both and made a look akin to revulsion. Unbelievable, he said. You two, wait here. He set off and left us alone. Sasuke looked at me curiously and I shrugged. I didn't really know much about the Shikamaru now except that his vocabulary is as good as mine and that he plays shogi. Oh, and he might know stuff about medicine. Just an observation from our first meeting. Sasuke and I waited patiently. In the meantime, he asked about the changes on the board and I tried to explain it all to him in exciting terms. If I told him how it worked by viewing the two sides as two hidden villages and the pieces as different ninja types with different specialties, it made better sense to him. He still only half got it though. Most of it flew over his head. It'll be a long while before I can get him to play shogi properly and willingly. Shikamaru returned shortly with a surprise in tow. It wasn't quite what I expected. I blinked with surprise. I didn't really have any trouble identifying this person. I knew immediately who was in front of me as opposed to others that I had to deduce from first. The thing with my prior knowledge of this world was how anime and people in real life are different. I mean, it's not like everyone is in 2D Japanese animation style. This was the real world. The reason why it took me a while to figure out who my family were was due to that, in part. I can understand why Sasuke and Itachi had fangirls. Even Shisui was liable to one if only he didn't act so. Naruto. But the thing was, my brothers all inherited our mother's stunning good looks. Our father didn't look bad too, but Uchiha Makoto just stood out more for being drop-dead gorgeous. Now, Shikamaru had been identifiable at the time we met because of all the context clues around us. I already knew I was in the Naruto-verse. The additional input of deer, freaky forest, gravity-defying pineapple hair, and shining intellect for a 3-year-old helped me put 2 and 2 together. This was probably the first time I didn't have to deduce anything. One look at the girl gave me all I needed. It wasn't just her physical appearance too. It was in her shy demeanor and formal wear that convinced me she was who I thought she was. "Who's she?" Sasuke asked innocently. He clearly had no idea who this was. And, frankly, I shouldn't too. "She's Hinata. She's playing with us today." Shikamaru highlighted the much-hated words of energy to put his point across. I find myself feeling impressed that he somehow managed to arrange a play date with the Hyuga heiress in under 15 minutes and making it look so easy. "Hi, I'm Sakuya. That's Sasuke. Sorry for dragging you into this." I smiled to her. She fidgeted, clearly unused to this sort of environment. She must be like Sasuke in a way. Incredibly sheltered and had no idea what outside interaction without the clan name was like. "Soke," she mumbled. She couldn't look us in the eyes. It was such a shame too. As unnerving looking at those all-seeing eyes is, they were actually really pretty. I was under the impression that they'd look like milky white clots, like cataracts. I couldn't be any more wrong. They were more like pearls. Clear as the sea permits. Hinata isn't allowed to come out play much because of her status as an heiress. But her father is okay with her coming over to play with me. I don't actually invite her, ever, but I thought this would be a nice chance for her to know more faces. Explained Shikamaru with a dry tone. And you know the weird part? She actually has more common sense than you troublesome Uchihas. He added. I deduced from that the hidden reason why he asked for Hinata. Really, with children of the Uchiha's clan head here along with the Jonin commanders, it wasn't all that odd that the Hyuga agreed to give her a day off. In their point of view, this was a political goldmine. I feel a bit of envy in Hinata now even if I know that her life is probably hell regardless. She at least has that freedom. Sasuke and I didn't have this until I more or less mutinied and explored the village on my own like a suicidal idiot. We were plenty coddled. Shikamaru's claims that we're worse off than the Hyuga heiress in that department is really no mystery. After all, it was shameful enough to admit that neither me nor Sasuke knew any of the local games. I know that a game of ninja was referenced many times in the series by children. But even that game, I have no idea what is. Wastfort. Sasuke spluttered. No one's ever been so blatantly rude to him before. Even I rarely scold him when warranted. This is the first time he's met someone who just doesn't give a shit. I feel a little relieved already. Striking a friendship with Shikamaru was so totally worth it. We played games for a good hour or two. Sasuke was extra annoyed when hide and seek turned out to be even worse for him with a Hyuga involved. Hinata and I were on a roll. As for Shikamaru, all he ever did was sleep. I couldn't actually find him and Hinata had to make a sweep with her Byakugan. Turns out, Hinata visits close political children like Shikamaru when prompted by her father. Of course, this usually pertains to social events that require them to be there, kind of like the galas for rich people back in my other world. She knows Kiba and Shino already. She tried her best to tell us about her friends as much as she could. They were clearly the more frequent playmates of the girl compared to the Jonin commander's son. And, predictably, the rare times that Hinata and Shikamaru was playing together also involved shogi. Hinata knew shogi at 3? That's an interesting fun fact. Now, Sasuke really wants to learn as he reshuffled his worldview. He really is just unlucky that the only kids he's interacted with were all weird. But now he thinks he's the weird one. It was actually a little funny when we got back home and he told everyone all about it at dinner. I swear, father was making the strangest facial expressions then. Considering it was him, it was impressive. It takes a lot to make him react that way. Shisui Ni had been mostly invisible the whole time. It was actually a bit of a bummer. I hoped that he would come play with us, but he decided to keep a respectful distance for some reason. He interacted shortly with Yoshino-san before taking off due to being called up for a mission. When he got back to take us home, the telltale signs of work was all over him and Sasuke wouldn't stop pestering him about mission details until we were out of his hair. He played Sasuke with exaggerated retelling, but I worked the context clues enough to know just what mission he took. Really, the demon cat phrase wasn't that hard to work with. It was probably that universally hated cat in the Naruto series. Wasn't it some important lady's pet? But that didn't mean it was over for him. He wasn't just an escort. He was Itachi's friend, and I am seriously going to go stir crazy if I don't get answers from him. Turns out, I just really needed to corner him when it was just us. Okay, you caught me, he said while laughing. I'm not having fun though. I chased him all over the compound. His shunshin really is unfair even if I do have extraordinary sensory abilities. Do they all have to tease me about it with this convoluted game of hide and seek? Man, you have even the sensory ninja beat Kuya-chan. I was suppressing my chakra signature. He said to me, is it really that weird that something that I didn't used to have in my old world would stick out to me like a sore thumb? Nah, when I want something, I get it. Now, you will answer my questions, I said haughtily. I mentally flinched at my high-pitched pretentious voice. It sounded a lot better in my head. Ah, how cute. He grinned and ruffled my short hair. Stop Tilda, I whined with less confidence than before. I don't actually dislike him doing that. It reminded me of my cousin. They were alike in so many ways, it hurt sometimes. The parallels give me unpleasant flashbacks. They're not actually unpleasant, but I'd rather not revisit those memories. You know, Itachi will be mad at me if I tell the stuff you want. You're not supposed to be looking into jutsus yet, he said. Unlike Itachi, Shisui knows how to handle me better. I won't deny that I've been clingy enough with him that he might as well be my older brother too. He has, on many occasions, played the role of confidant and helped me figure out the awkward mystery behind Itachi's unfailing tendencies to piss me off out of nowhere. Father really should be doing this, but he's just as bad as Itachi. I was just asking. It wasn't like I was going to practice them. I totally would've, but you could. That's what he wants to avoid happening. Jutsus aren't for little kids. Chided Shisui lightly. But he's been learning jutsus since before. I pouted. I knew that for sure. It wasn't just the whisperings and not so subtle rain of praise everyone has for the prodigy child. Even when I was a baby, I was conscious. I knew he was practicing jutsus even back when he was 5. He was personally requesting them from father. Shisui sighed. He's going to kill me, but what the heck? So, he explained to me the basic theory behind shunshin. It was exactly the same as I read about it. That's what had me confused. But, how do you get to do it so fast? There has to be some trick. He chuckled like I just said something funny. It's funny that you ask that. Everyone assumes the same thing, he said. I frowned. So, it wasn't some trick. It was something inherently shunshin that most people tend to overlook. Shunshin is, at the simplest of explanations, high-speed movement. It may look like teleportation, but it isn't. It's moving in a flash like some sort of speedster. A ninja can move short to long distances at an almost untraceable speed. It is accomplished by using chakra to temporarily vitalize the body and move at extreme speeds. The amount of chakra required depends on the overall distance and elevation between the user and the intended destination. Is that it? Was the answer just chakra output? Tell me, how fast do you think I'm thinking when I'm using the technique? He asked me. Like normal. It doesn't really affect mental processes, right? I clarified. His nod told me that I was right. Exactly. So, if I don't suddenly think faster, how do you think I know where to go to so fast? He asked. You think about it first? I guessed. He nodded again. Now, if I plan where I go to in, say, 20 moves ahead, how fast do you think I could go? I was stunned, silent and guffawed. It was pre-planning. No extra chakra boost, no special trick. It was him. I feel like an idiot. Ha ha ha. Didn't expect that, did you? He said. But in the middle of a fight. How? What? Huh? I said intelligently. That's where these come in. He pointed to his eyes. Sometimes, I can't plan fast enough to save my own skin, so I cheat. But most of the time, I don't really need it. You fight as frequent as me out there, and predicting the enemy's moves tend to come easier. He shrugged. Sharingan provides high-speed analysis and seemingly slows down everything and focuses on even the smallest of detail. I can see how something like that can give his Shunshin a significant boost. I can see now how he became so legendary. But even without the Sharingan, he was already seemingly untouchable with his speed. And it was because he was smart about how he fought. Plan ahead. That has to be some sort of motto. Shikamaru was a great ninja because he was a great tactician. So was his father. So was every other ninja that used their brain in battle, in fact. Which, I assume, would be most of the elite. No one survives for so long if all they've ever done is rush forward without a plan, unless they were Naruto. And even he knows how to think on his feet. You are so playing shogi with me at least once. I demanded. He smirked. I get the feeling that he isn't a half-bad player. As much as he likes acting like an idiot, he's pretty smart on his own. Father was training us today. I was a bit surprised that I didn't have to whine to be allowed to join, but I didn't complain. It was a pleasant change. Sasuke and I were sparring today. Taijutsu. The first match didn't go so well for me. I underestimated how good Sasuke's gotten and paid the price. As I rubbed my sore limbs, I sent Father a nasty glare that said all I needed to without actually saying anything. He's been training Sasuke more from under my nose. Sneaky ass. The second match went to me undisputedly. I tried to use Shisui's advice that, frankly, applies to everything, not just Shunshin. The match didn't even last a minute. I practically lured Sasuke to a trap by faking openings and directing his moves. A well-executed counter found him pinned on the floor with his arm in an uncomfortable lock. I shot Father a defiant look. I don't know what his issue is, but I haven't been slacking just because he isn't there to supervise. We spent the entire day sparring and Sasuke was reasonably sour with me afterwards. You could have held back, he muttered. You weren't, so why shouldn't I? I grinned. Had I held back, he would have noticed and be even grumpier about it. Sasuke hates being treated like a weakling. Everything hurts, he whined. I understand what he means. When we first started formally training with Father, my everything hurt so badly, it wasn't even fair. It actually hurt my pride that Sasuke barely flinched from hits that sent me reeling back then. Eventually, my sensitive chakra sense told me what was going on. Chakra ran through his chakra network as he unconsciously enhanced his muscles, making him more resistant to pain, not to mention faster. I felt like an idiot when I realized that. I was unusually aware of my chakra, so I tend to keep it under wraps and controlled. It wasn't a reflex to me. It was an extra limb that I had no idea how to go about with. It took a while, but repeated practice helped me learn how to use reinforcement as mindlessly as breathing. Breathing was an excursion that already proved I can do anything I set my mind to, and I wasn't going to let chakra enhancement lag behind. Reinforcement was interesting though. It let me toy with a couple of ideas. I already knew that objects could be imbued with chakra for subtle manipulation. A current project of mine involves using chakra to strengthen them, or, subsequently, weaken them. It was like Fate series all over again. I really love how in-depth the explanations for that was openly provided to the confused viewers. The theories that work there have some stunningly similar applications here. I wouldn't be surprised if that world exists too. Though, a part of me is glad that it's not where I ended up with. As horrible and war-torn the Naruto-verse is, the Nasu-verse is a lot scarier and, not to mention, heartless. Do you want to know how I kept winning? I asked Sasuke teasingly. He gasped and gave me a hopeful look. Yes, he said without hesitation. It's because I'm a better shogi player than you. I smirked. What's that supposed to mean? No good ninja can be excellent without using his brain. I said sagely. He paused. Something was happening behind those dark orbs. Something like contemplation. Does this mean Shikamaru is stronger than me? Sasuke said with light revulsion. Going by the logic I used, that sort of conclusion isn't unusual. But then, Shikamaru was the laziest person we knew. I get how he feels. I took note that he didn't bother Koin and Hinata. We all knew that Hinata was far ahead of us in taijutsu. We don't stand a chance. Well, he probably wouldn't bother in a taijutsu match with you. He'd give up because he knows you can easily outlast him in stamina. But if it were an actual battle in a less rigid field of battle, he'd probably run circles around you and make you wish he wasn't your opponent. I was stretching it a little. I doubt that even with all the mandatory training he has to do as clan heir, he'd be able to beat Sasuke in a fair match. He's 3, but he sure wouldn't go down without a fight, and the chances are more 50-50 anyways. Even in shogi, I feel that way when fighting Shikamaru. His weakness is, more or less, his body. But his mind was a frightening thing. Given enough information and motivation, as well as the appropriate resources, he could single-handedly engineer the collapse of a ninja village. Fine, Sasuke said squeamishly. I'll learn how to play better. It's a genius thing, right? I blinked. Now, that was a leap of logic I didn't expect. But, in hindsight, it isn't that far off. I wouldn't exactly call myself a genius, but Itachi and Shikamaru were unusually high-grade players despite their age. Their intellect is reflected in their strategies. The only reason why they don't dominate as well is because they lack proper experience that only the wisdom of age could possibly provide. Then, I grinned. That's nice, Sasuke. I know just the perfect opponent for you. Shisui is in for a surprise if he thinks that I'll be his only opponent for shogi. He promised to give me time for matches, and I'm going to milk it for all it was worth. It was very festive today. Kumo was visiting the village for a peace treaty. In everyone's point of view, it was probably a good reason to be happy. But, I can't help but feel uneasy. Like I've missed something important. My knowledge of the Naruverse isn't as clear-cut as I want it to be. There are many things that I've forgotten. Even more so for coined in past incidences from before the actual start of the series. But, something about this whole peace treaty bugged me. It was Kumo, Cloud. I was pretty sure that Konoha's relationship with them wasn't as nice as today was implying. I tried to rack my head. There was something. I think, Neji is involved? I'm not sure. But what could have happened to Neji here? I don't even see a single Hyuga anywhere. Sakuya, where are you going? I mentally cursed the so-called twin sense that Sasuke impeccably inherited. I don't see Hinata around. It's her birthday, remember? I reminded him. It was a fact that I knew because I was told here. It wasn't just something I knew from being a fan of the anime. It picked at my brain incessantly though. What is this bad feeling? You're right, I don't see any Hyuga around, said Sasuke. His observational skills have been improving. They must be celebrating. We have a gift for Hinata and I don't want to waste it, so I'm going to drop it off and wish her a happy birthday. I told him, great idea, I'll come with you. I'll just get Shisui Nisan first. He said cheerily. I mentally chagrined myself for letting him take charge like that. But, a part of me felt like it was a good idea to have Shisui Ni with us. I just feel like something bad is going to happen. Shisui was hesitant about taking us to the Hyuga compound, especially with international delegates about. But we promised that it wouldn't be long, and he eventually got permission for it from father. We were hurrying up to the compound in the night. It wasn't that late yet, but it seemed that way with the eerie quietness of the area as opposed to the festive village proper. It wasn't long that my spread-wide senses picked up on a chakra flare that just had to be hostile. There was no uproar in the Hyuga compound, but I felt my feet move before I could confirm anything. I felt more than saw a stranger with trained chakra coils and compressed chakra signature trying to escape with a terrified Hinata wrapped up in a blanket. He was surprised to see me in his path and even more surprised to find himself knocked out by Shisui's impeccable speed. Seconds later, Hinata's father came vaulting over the wall and pulling his daughter close into a tight embrace. Is he dead? He asked, voice hollow and dry. No, I just knocked him out. This was a security breach, so interrogation was going to be demanded later on. Fidgeted Shisui. He probably was just as shocked as I am. It all just happened so fast. Hyuga Hiyashi looked like he wanted to disagree and kill the kidnapper, but saw the logic in the genin's words. Shisui was an Uchiha, so his words were more than trustworthy. After all, the Uchiha handled the internal security of the village. They knew all the protocols that came with it. The Hyuga turned the unconscious shinobi about and cursed silently when he saw who it was. Even I felt cold. It was the visiting Kumo delegate, their head ninja. Had we killed him, we would have been in the middle of a political shitstorm. The Hyuga put in a few jukin blocks to further incapacitate the enemy. It was more like light tapping on the surface, but my senses told me a different story. Most of the major tenketsu points of utilizing jutsu were blocked in the arm. The jukin strikes felt extra vicious. I will handle this matter. I thank you for saving my daughter, children, Hiyashi said with a heavy tone. He was far too troubled to be put out by the idea of being beholden to a bunch of kids. But, at least he sent us genuine gratitude. Then, he doubled back. On that note, what are you doing here? He asked curiously. After all, everyone was supposed to be at the festival. Shisui was a bit tongue-tied. Frankly, I am too. Then, the unfounded bravery of children saved the day. Hinata's birthday is today. We couldn't find her in the festival, so we went here to give her gift. Explained Sasuke. He was sheepish and somewhat scared about what happened, as expected. But, had he been a little bit more aware of who he was talking to, he might have been a lot more tongue-tied like us. Hiyashi paused to digest that new information. There was recognition in his eyes, as if he finally decoded our identities. You are Fugaku's children, he surmised. I'm just their temporary guardian, sir. Shisui said stiffly. I swear, I'll report this incident to Fugaku-sama immediately. He was being unusually formal. Sasuke noticed it too. Then, I realized the reason why. Right now, Shisui was a representative of the police force even if he wasn't a part of it. As an Uchiha, he was expected to cooperate uniformly to deal with the case. Good. The faster the matter is resolved, the better. I will be taking my daughter inside. You should all return to your homes as well, said Hiyashi. I hesitantly moved forward, a wrapped present visibly showcased in my arms like some sort of shield. The weight of his stare made my knees shake. Had I not felt like coming here? Had Sasuke not insisted to take Shisui? I don't even want to think of what might have happened. Hinata's small hand hesitantly reached out for it. It was a small comfort for the fear she must be feeling right now. She was almost kidnapped. That had to be scary. She didn't speak, but I saw enough from her body language to know what she was saying. She was thankful. I barely noticed being taken off my feet and breezed back towards the Uchiha compound by Shisui. It must have been difficult carrying two kids when he was barely a bit older than us himself, but I was more focused on the erratic pulse of his chakra. I knew, among the three of us, Shisui was scared the most. You did good, Shisui. You weren't in the wrong, said father. But what's to happen to the peace treaty? Trying to kidnap the Hyuga heiress in the guise of it is practically a declaration of war. Shisui was practically choking up. The Third Shinobi War finished up right before Sasuke and I were born. It didn't take a genius to know that it was the reason why Shisui was currently an orphan and a bearer of the Mangekyo. It's one of the reasons why he was something of a pacifist. He hated war more than anything. And now, he's afraid that another one was right at their doorstep. Hokage-sama is dealing with that now. No one really wants another war so soon again. Even Kumo has yet to recover from their losses, assured father. But, even I heard the doubt in his voice. The pair continued to discuss matters and I didn't feel like eavesdropping anymore. I dropped my hearing reinforcement and went back to focusing on my game. Sasuke didn't bother complain when I brought out the shogi board. He wanted something to take his mind off of what happened tonight too. Do you think she's okay? Sasuke suddenly cut through the silence. I looked up to him, startled, and saw his frightened eyes. They pierced me like a lance. I realized the cold truth. It could have been us. I'm sure she'll be fine. Her father's taking care of her. It was a lie and I knew it. But, I didn't want Sasuke to needlessly worry about her. Why would they do that? Why would they take her from her family? He asked both in fear and in confusion. He just realized that terrible things like that could happen and his sheltered upbringing is showing. You know how Hinata's eyes were special, right? There are other people that would go to such lengths just to have them. I explained. Because she can see through walls? He asked. I nodded grimly. Because of that and more, Hinata became victim to such a horrible crime. Then, if Shisui Nisan couldn't fight, he could have been taken too? He asked with a wavering tone, fear evident in his eyes. I knew that he probably wanted me to say no, but he needed to understand that we weren't untouchable. Bad things happen. With the nod of my head, his expression fell. He looked really scared and I'm to blame for it. I was the one who wanted to go the Hyuga compound because my gut feeling was nagging at me. Sasuke and I were Uchiha. Had Shisui not been there, we might have ended up being kidnapped too. As salivating the Hyuga bloodline limit was, the Uchihas was just as enticing to the other shinobi villages. Sasuke worried for Hinata and Shisui. I was worried for him. Don't worry about Shisui ni. We both know he's awesome. No one could kidnap him without a fight. I tell him in an attempt to cheer him up. That one wasn't a lie. I just found out something disturbing in my eavesdropping after all. Even in his tender age, Shisui was already a jonin. That actually made me want to reassess him. Why the heck isn't anyone calling him a genius kid? Yeah, you're right. He's great. Just like Ni-san, Sasuke said with a bit more confidence. Of course, he's chalking up Shisui's ability to fend for himself on the grounds that he's the only one that can actually spar with Itachi properly. That brought a little bit of humor into this dead atmosphere. He really didn't know, did he? Then again, Shisui is very good at making himself unseemly. But still, it'll be sad again when Sasuke realizes that Hinata probably wouldn't be allowed out of the Hyuga compound for a long while. It was our 4th birthday and we managed to convince our parents to let us celebrate it at the Naris. Shikaku-sama once joked that he'd let us ride one of the gentler fawns when we got a little older, and we managed to cash in that promise with a double dose of troublesome pleading. Thankfully, Rikumaru's mother wasn't too against having kids riding her like a horse. It was fun. Deer were unexpectedly mountable, if they weren't jumping. We had another surprise though. Somehow, without me or Sasuke knowing, Shikamaru managed to make another friend that could put up with his attitude. I was a bit surprised to learn that the Ino Shikacho weren't forced on each other as children. Oh, I know they must have been around each other a lot as infants. But, as fully conscious brats, they managed to somehow gravitate towards each other on their own without their parents prodding. I have to say, that was smart. It's the friends that you make rather than the ones forced on you that last. And, I get the feeling that Shikamaru hit the bull's eye when it comes to emotional heartstrings with Choji. Everything about him screamed bullied child. And that child was now following Shikamaru around like a duckling. Ah well, at least it assured us that lunch was godly. Sasuke couldn't help but admit that it might actually be better than our mother's cooking. That's Akamichi food for you. Speaking of our mother, she came over with us today since it was our birthday and everything. She was conversing with Yoshino and Choji's mother, whose name I have yet to ask, in the living room. They were talking about perfectly normal mother stuff. But, it was a big deal for me. I panicked for a while, wondering if none of my efforts were working. There was only so much a child could do. It was still glaringly obvious to me how the growing rift between the clan and the village was starting to make things unpleasant. But, looking at them so relaxed with each other gives me hope. Sakuya, look, the cake looks like our clan symbol, Sasuke said excitedly. In contrast, I frowned at the confectionery. Seriously? That's really unimaginative, I commented. I felt Sasuke's light ribbing and heard Choji's muffled chuckling in the background. HMPH. You're so hard to please. I heard Shisui ni say. He popped up out of nowhere. Oh, so he's the one that got it. Now, it isn't so unimaginative. I'm fairly sure he did this just to joke with me. I've always asked about the clan symbol and how it practically begged for puns. I mean it. Our clan name is Uchiha and the Japanese word for fan was Uchiwa. So, yeah, don't tell me. It's chocolate, I said dryly. He grinned cheekily. I don't really like chocolate much. I'm fine with most sweets, but chocolate is the exception. I think it's because of the trauma I endured as a child, being operated for tonsillitis due to eating too much of it. That was when I discovered that, in my former life, I was allergic to penicillin. The doctor didn't know. My parents didn't know. I think I almost died when they injected it into me to deal with the bacteria. What was supposed to be a simple operation turned into a dragged-on drama in the ER. When it was all over, they had to make me wait until they figured out what alternatives I could use. It was horrible. I don't really have that problem anymore with that, different body and all, but the trauma carried, I guess. Chocolate makes me back away now. We should save your piece for Ni-san. He loves sweets, said Sasuke. He isn't as into sweets either, but our brother is a different story. But he's on a mission. I frowned. We had refrigerators here somehow that run on seals, but there was no telling how long it'll take Itachi to get back home. Just put it in a storage scroll. Shikamaru suggested like it was the most obvious thing. He was right. Storage seals provided for airtight containment that not only killed the chances of the food getting spoiled but also made it easier to carry around. The ones sold in the market had limited capacity and were expensive though. There was a reason why Itachi limited his use of them for his missions. They were useful, yes, but dependency on them made for quite the scary hole in the wallet. We don't have any and we don't know how to use them. Sasuke said for me. Shikamaru sighed and grabbed some paper and ink. Lazily, he scrawled perfect calligraphy on the paper and then put a slice of cake in the middle. It disappeared and the seal became active, no longer being just ink. I stared at it. Then, I stared at him. Then, I stared back at it. What just happened? Asked Sasuke, dumbstruck. I sealed it for you. He might as well have just rolled his eyes and said duh. But, it still doesn't explain anything. You just made a seal. All by yourself. I said to him. Yeah, all you really need is paper and ink. He shrugged. I stared at the seal again. I brought it to my hands and, yes, I can sense that it was active and thrummed with some chakra. Yes, I could tell that something roughly the size of the cake slice was inside. He just made a seal, the veritable machines of this world, just like that. Don't you ever learn anything from what your parents teach you? Shikamaru looked miffed that he had to explain. Like, we should have known what he did already. But my expression probably goes like, no, I don't. Because, that's the face both Sasuke and Choji were making. Two-san taught me how to stick a leaf on my forehead yesterday. Offered Sasuke. Shikamaru gave him an unimpressed look. After all, that low-level chakra control exercise was nothing in comparison to making freaking storage seals on his own. Wow. As expected of Shikaku-sama. Whistled Shisui. Even he didn't get an education that extensive. It was getting increasingly clear that while Shikamaru was seemingly undertrained, his education as clan heir was actually quite advanced. It makes me feel like all my efforts were nothing in comparison. It actually makes me wonder, why the heck was Shikamaru considered one of the dead lasts when he graduated the academy and the series? Surely, his parents would have noticed that he was literally throwing his education down the drain. I can get Shikaku-sama, but how could Yoshino-sama let him get away with it? Storage scrolls are useful and that's why they're expensive. Our clan utilizes them for many different dealings, so it's more economical to just make them. My parents pounded into me the basics of making the standard seals used by ninja like flash bombs, storage scrolls, water scrolls. Explosive notes. I added an interruption. When you think commonly utilized ninja seals, it's usually storage scrolls and explosive notes. Yes, those two. I'm not allowed to make them without supervision though. And, I don't actually want to. I don't want to accidentally blow myself up. I felt a little bit of relief. At least he's learning in a safe environment. But, this opens up something to me. Fuinjutsu. Was it really as simple as Shikamaru said? I know that he has a tendency to explain things as if they were super simple but… Paper and ink? That's really it? Oh no. I know that look. I'm not teaching you anything. Shikamaru said in advance. Damn, that was a point for him. He was getting really good at telling whether or not I wanted something. Can you at least give me pointers? I whined. This really interested me. Seals were reality warping shit. Hell, it was a seal that put the Biju into people. It was a freaking seal that made Edo Tensei fucking possible. Seals were a big deal. There's a library. Use it, he said to me. But it's so far tilde, I whined. That was no exaggeration. It was no trouble getting to the village library open to all from the Nara compound. They probably don't need it what with their own secret archives and stuff, but it was for the benefit of my example. In comparison with the Nara's corner of the village, the Uchiha compound was annoyingly far from the city center. It was annoying not only for that but also for the police force because it made responding to hails a lot more difficult. I know that the reason for that is probably some sort of diplomatic shit. I remember the move. We weren't living in that area before. It was only after the Kyuubi attack that we were. Given the historical notes about how Uchiha Madara could control the Kyuubi with his Sharingan, it didn't shock me that the council would fear the Uchiha and assume they had something to do with the incident. They were half right, and Uchiha was responsible. But, it wasn't the clan's doing. Why don't you just, borrow books in bulk? suggested Choji. He was mostly hesitant to socialize with me and Sasuke for fear of rejection, so he was more or less invisible. This was his first actual attempt to reach out. I forgot that it was for a second and possibly made his heart stop. Choji, you're a genius. I snatched him up into a tight hug. I was so happy he reminded me that libraries have borrowing systems. There was such a thing here as clearance level though, but I'm pretty sure I can get my hands on the stuff I need regardless. Great, she'll be reading all day again. This is your fault. Sasuke blamed Shikamaru. The Nara just made a lazy wave of dismissal. Whatever we do is on us. Shisui was laughing out loud. I was meandering out of the library with a whole trolley of books and scrolls when a Hyuga suddenly appeared before me. Oju-sama, he said respectfully. In confusion, I turned around to see who he was talking to. It was far too early in the morning, so there wasn't anyone there but me. Hinata-sama sends her apologies for not being able to attend your birthday party. Please accept her present regardless. Okay, that just made clear that he was talking to me. It was weird, being referred to that formally. Is that why Shikaku-sama keeps insisting that I call him normally? Thanks? I accepted the suspicious scroll being given to me hesitantly. Oh, I knew that this guy was a Hyuga and that he wasn't faking his appearance with a henge. The eyes were a dead giveaway. I also knew that he wasn't really lying going by his body language. But, what? He disappeared in after a short bow with a shunshin. It was like he just finished a mission or something. Fine, the Uchiha were technically nobility too, but that was the first time I just registered that other clans really were that stereotypical. I just got handed a present through a servant. It was weird. The scroll came with a letter attached. It wasn't actually written in Hinata's handwriting. Figures that even in gift-giving, she was being influenced as to what was proper and stuff. It was obviously her father's handwriting. It has come to our attention that you've been interested in Fuinjutsu. May these texts prove useful to your studies. Hyuga Hiyashi. Yep, it was her father. I thought back to the last time I saw Hinata. She looked like she was ready to fall apart right then and there in her fear. I insisted that she get her present then because, well, it was the reason we came there in the first place. Also, I hoped that it could help her cope with the incident. I got her a scarf because I thought it was appropriate. Her birthday was smack dab in the middle of winter. We don't actually experience snow, only occasionally, but it still gets pretty cold when the season comes in. It wasn't too much. It was just a soft muffler to put around her neck with a nice lavender shade. I didn't make it, of course. I suck at handicrafts and all that stuff. Even cooking is beyond me because I don't particularly like going near the stove. I knew that I'd have to get over the fear of fire eventually, given that the Uchiha were known for their fire techniques. But, not yet. I knew how to seal and unseal stuff from scrolls. It was actually super easy, anyone could do it. I hesitated opening the scroll, not sure if there was only one book or more than one. I waited till I got back home until I did. The stuff inside was more than I expected. There were books on the basic fundamentals of Fuinjutsu, typically the accepted Konoha style. But there were also brushes and chakra conductive ink. The nice kind too. I felt a little winded. That was a very generous gift. Are they perhaps feeling like they owed me? I suddenly want to fast forward to Shisui's birthday just to see what they're going to give him. You got stuff too? I heard Sasuke say from the door. He was holding a familiar-looking scroll with the Hyuga crest on them. They're from Hinata, I said, but not really said it. It explained absolutely nothing. Sasuke unsealed his scroll and out came a couple of fancy-looking clothes. The Uchiha were rich and tended to put a stamp on all their articles, true. But we weren't exactly the type to parade around in expensive-looking yukatas. We should have gotten her a better scarf. He commented. All of a sudden, the gift felt lacking. You think she's okay? I haven't actually thought about it much lately. He confessed to me. It wasn't that he hasn't been thinking of it. He's just been trying his best not to. She was probably fine anyways, and needlessly worrying was just going to stress him out. She's probably the safest she's ever been. But, I do worry about her. We haven't seen her in months. Sasuke and I used to at least see her once a week when she comes to play at the Naris. When Hinata is around to come play, she usually ends up socializing with Sasuke more than me and Shikamaru. The two of us are, as Sasuke put it, weird. It probably should have been different. The girls and the boys should have separated into gender groups, as is the norm. But Shikamaru and I were far more compatible than him and Sasuke. They were too contrary. So, Sasuke probably has more invested in determining the Hyuga's welfare than me. Do you think they'll let her out soon? Sasuke asked hesitantly. I took note that he didn't ask why they were keeping her under lock and key for so long. He understood that end already. The political debacle with Kumo mostly ended up being in our favor. It really was a good thing that Shisui decided to take non-lethal measures and thought ahead. Had he killed that guy, Kumo might have demanded for his corpse. But the tension it caused kept people, especially the ninja, wiry for a long while. Even after it was concluded, it didn't really stop. The Uchiha were especially wiry too, considering that we technically got involved. Maybe. Either way, we'll probably all end up in the academy together anyways. I shrugged. Sasuke didn't say anything else, but I knew that this conversation wouldn't truly be over until he sees to it that she really is fine. Sasuke really is a great friend to have. I eyed the supplies that were given to me and, while a little hesitant to use them, determined that not utilizing them would be such a waste. Returning them would be rude anyhow. But I did bother to make a short letter for Hinata's father to thank him for bothering and to subtly tell him that he really doesn't need to. We just happened to be there. It was a matter of circumstance. To Shisui, it was duty. He didn't owe us. Sharingan? I paused for a second. I looked towards Sasuke to find some confirmation. He never lies to me, or to anyone. He wouldn't be able to either way if I'm his conversation partner. And, he didn't look like he was lying. Nisan's eyes were different, and he was crying. Sasuke looked worried. The Sharingan usually manifests in stressful combat situation. It must have been his mission. Did something bad happen? I asked. This might actually give me some answers. Why is it that Itachi was so driven? So much that he'd throw away his heart for Sasuke's sake. He didn't say. Mumbled Sasuke. He's going to be fine, right? I blinked at him. Of course Itachi's going to be alright. The Sharingan is an obvious boost to his ability. He'll probably be getting higher tier missions soon. I'm sure he'll be fine. If worst come to worst, he'll have his teammates with him. I reassured Sasuke. Oh, teammates. So, no one will try take him, right? He asked uneasily, as if I really do have all the answers in the world. I paused at his question. Sasuke. He wasn't worried about Itachi. He was worried about what might happen to him because he finally got his eyes. The Hyuga incident. Oh, yes. I did my best to sound sure. I am sure because there's no way he would go down so easily like that. There's no way Itachi would get taken away. He's too strong for that. And he's with friends, I said reassuringly. Teammates are friends. That would let it sink in faster for Sasuke. Right, mumbled Sasuke. Fear really was an awful enemy. I gestured him to come closer and let him settle by my side. I just hugged him until we both fell asleep. We were 5 and full of life. Sasuke was a lot better now in his basic skills and even threw in some of the styles he learned from me rather than father. It was pretty obvious that I developed my own style. It was rather difficult not to when I had background knowledge ingrained into my memory. The only thing I had trouble with was the disappearance of my muscle memory, but I rectified that with zealous private training. Father couldn't exactly say anything about it when they were so effective. It's not like he trains me a lot himself anyways. I made some headway in my Fuinjutsu studies and was able to make seals with confidence now. I can tell that father doesn't really approve, but, clan image or no, he can just suck it. Fuinjutsu were surprisingly fun and easy. Not to mention useful. I was toying with the idea of making my own seals, but other things had to be taken note of. You better not leave me in the dust. Moped Sasuke. Please. Graduating early is too troublesome. I'd rather not end up swamped with so much work so quickly. That was a joke on Itachi. He was the perfect picture of a child who didn't get to experience childhood. He was always so awkward around me. I think it mostly has to do with how independent I am compared to Sasuke. Don't say that, you're going to turn into him, Sasuke said frantically. It took me a second to figure out that he was talking about Shikamaru. I ended up laughing at his distress. Academy admissions were coming soon. There would be a test to determine if we were within acceptable parameters for entry, but neither of us worried. We were definitely getting in. We committed a lot to training and studying. Our clan wouldn't accept anything less than excellent. We were representing not only ourselves but the clan as a whole, being the clan head's children. It was only the heavy expectations soon come that worries me. Itachi's a difficult lead to follow. Then, the bomb was dropped. What do you mean she's not coming? Sasuke was the one who spoke for me. I was too shocked, too angry to respond. It was all swirling around my head and everything just froze in me. Why? She's attending the civilian elementary school, said father. That was a blow worse than the first one. No one in the Uchiha clan ever went to the civilian school. It was unheard of. Even the ones that ended up becoming civilians still got their basic education in the academy. The one for ninja. So, why? But Sakuya is really great and strong. She's better than me. Why isn't she going to be a ninja? Sasuke pressed. He didn't usually question father and followed all his orders to a T. But this one was just something he had to fight for. He had to because I couldn't. It was obvious that it hasn't really registered to me yet. My hand was cold and gripping his tightly that it had to be broken now. Why? Did I do something wrong? Am I unsatisfactory? It's not because I'm a girl. Even I know that's a bogus reason. Mother was a great kunoichi, a jonin even. There would be no ism in this weighty decision. And yet, mother is averting her eyes and agreeing to father's unfair decision. Why? She can't, father said with a snap. He didn't look too happy about it either, but he said it like there was no other choice. When you were both little, Sakuya was diagnosed with chakra hypersensitivity. It's a sickness that manifests sometimes in excellent inborn sensors. She is much too aware of her own chakra that using it would hurt her. He explained stiffly. At that, it finally dawned on me. It finally made sense. I never was the healthiest seeming baby. I visited the hospital far too much. It was because of this. Because of my ability. Everyone was always so hesitant to train me, father especially. I would always get wistful looks of disappointment, no, disapproval, whenever I did something well. I always tried hard to reach their unfairly high standards. I thought it was just a stigma of me being a girl. I was wrong. The looks weren't because I couldn't reach the level of potential they wanted to see. It wasn't because I was untalented in their eyes. It was because they were under the impression that all of that effort I put in would be wasted. Because I can't be a ninja. What? Sasuke looked towards me in horror. He knew that I was unusually good at sensing people. He knew that I practiced chakra control exercises too. And now, he looked hesitant to back me up. Suddenly, it felt like his hand was burning me and I let go with a hiss. No, I said in denial. The abandonment hurt. The blatant slap to my face hurt. They were all resigned to giving up on me. They all thought I couldn't be a ninja. Sasuke is going, I pointed out. That was a big deal because, well, we're twins. We did almost everything together. I even shared my friends with him. We were inseparable. They were tearing us apart. A small voice in my head betrayed me when I saw Sasuke's torn expression. They already did. I worked just as hard as everybody. I did my best. Please, I want to be a ninja. I pressed. I need to be a ninja. I tried very hard not to let the tears slip. I tried not to break down. I felt like I was just stripped of my identity. It wasn't fair. Honey, please understand. We only want what's best for you. Mother tried to calm me. What's best for me? Was planning a coup the best for their kids? Was festering in anger and pulling away from the other clans and keeping them away from actual interaction with other kids the best? Was agreeing to Itachi's early graduation the best for him? I wanted to throw those facts at their faces, even the ones that I'm not sure I've fixed or not yet. But, I reined it in. Whining wouldn't do me any good. What I need is a solution. If they're going to hold me back, then I'll work around them. I always get what I want. Fine, if you're not going to enroll me, I'll enroll myself, I said steely. I stormed out of the house and barely heard their cries. It was all a blur behind the painful betrayal and the tears. I could enroll myself. It was allowed by the system. There were many orphaned kids who saw the life of a ninja as a way to escape their hopeless states and be something. But not all orphans could afford to be there. In the time of war, a suggestion was made about the induction of children into the academy. Anyone who wanted to be a ninja was free to take the entrance test. Those who passed could enter and those who didn't couldn't. Those who came from clans were normally backed by their own clan. All expenses, even the miscellaneous stuff, were to be sponsored by their clan for their particular representatives. Those who were civilians but could pay provided for themselves accordingly. Then, there were those who couldn't pay. These were usually orphans or people who were so poor, they just couldn't afford it. The academy then provided for them. All their expenses were then put into an account that, should they graduate and become a ninja, would be remitted from their missions until it was fully paid, with an interest. It usually only took a year or two to do so. It was a fairly acceptable policy. Those who end up dropping out still have to pay the debt, of course. But instead of being paid off by missions, they have to pay it off with whatever job they get in the future or be passed on to the orphanage they belong to. Right now, I am more than ready to exploit that loophole and enroll myself. I could even present myself to the Hyuga or the Nara and beg them to sponsor me just to add more insult to the Uchiha who wouldn't. It wasn't unheard of that clans would sponsor civilian children that show great promise. Sometimes, Jonin do it too, though with less political propaganda in mind. But first, I couldn't take the test like this. Not when I'm so emotionally compromised. I hid myself and cried until I felt better. The sun was setting and I didn't even feel like coming home. That was when Shisui Ni came to see me. I heard what happened from Itachi. He said. I didn't bother look up and see his face. I don't want to feel even more disappointed and betrayed. You understand that they just don't want you to get hurt, right? He sat down by me and reasoned by proxy. He probably thinks the same as them. They gave up on me. They were all so ready to just let it go. They didn't even bother ask me what I wanted. I said bitterly. It wasn't fair, really didn't quite cover it. You know, Itachi often came to me when he was your age. He was always so worried about you. You were always going to the hospital and he saw you die so many times. He didn't understand how to handle it. It was all so new to him. He started. You kept forcing your chakra out and shorting yourself. The doctor said it was a common symptom for babies born with chakra hypersensitivity. You kept on struggling and crying when the doctors performed chakra transfusions on you. Everyone was afraid that you'd die. But you didn't. I knew this. I knew it in my mind that I remembered those moments. I was barely aware at the time and was borderline hysteric. I was so convinced that I was drowning. But, I remembered. Then, several months later, just when you were finally getting better, the Kyuubi happened. You just shut down. They said it was your hypersensitivity. The evil chakra was getting to you, stunned you. Makoto-sama rocked you for hours while trying to soothe you with her chakra. Tried to get you back. She didn't even put you down for the funeral and took you along. Then, you shorted out again. That time, I was the one who ran you to the hospital. It was really busy in the village, what with the relocations and construction, so they weren't too sure where to go. I was faster anyways and Itachi practically begged me to do it. This time, I did raise my head. It was the first time I heard of this. I knew I was confined again, but I didn't know that Shisui had any involvement. He had been there right from the start. You were so fragile and still in my arms. You were so cold. I didn't think I would make it in time. But, the doctors managed to save you. They kept you under observation for a while and put you in a protective ward. There was still a lot of lingering Kyuubi chakra. They didn't want to risk it. You weren't the only one who suffered then. You were just one of the lucky ones that survived. Your parents were hesitant to take you back when they did. But the hospital couldn't afford to keep their doctors too occupied with patients that were more or less okay. For those first few months, Makoto-sama didn't dare take you out of the house. They were afraid they'd lose you again. Then, you grew up. You were so smart that even Itachi seemed normal in comparison. You picked up things really fast and even learned how to read before you were 3 through sheer stubborn effort. I still laugh sometimes when I remember how Itachi told me your first words were "read it." I blinked. I didn't remember that. I knew that I slipped a couple of times, but I didn't think that that was my first spoken word. Maybe, in front of Itachi, it was. I whispered to Sasuke all the time, like some cursing ghost. The thing is, they didn't want to make you sad too. They didn't have the heart tell you that they weren't planning on making you attend the academy. Even the elders were accepting of that even when you were turning out to be quite the mini Itachi. They weren't trying to hurt you. I mulled over that. I suppose I was being a little selfish. From their point of view, things were a lot different. But, it still hurt. They didn't think I could do it. They were wrong. I chalked. That was really the problem, wasn't it? They gave up on me too easily. They didn't even bother ask for my opinion, built me up only so they could tear my world down with a stern no. I can use chakra. It doesn't hurt, promise. But, they were so sure. I knew they wouldn't listen. I said with a wavering tone. The tears were threatening to come back. Oh, I knew that. How many times have I caught you trying to do shunshin already? What, 10, 11 times, he said with a playful wink. I blushed. 17 times. He caught me 17 times. And, despite that, he never called on me with the others. He never got me in trouble even if there was a real chance that I was hurting myself over trying because of that stupid diagnosis. I begged him not to and made him swear not to tell. Then, why didn't you say anything? I asked him. My voice was horribly hoarse. Would it matter? He asked. He was right. It was a family problem. He personally was involved, but in the end, he was an outsider. Even if he told Itachi, my big brother would have just tried to swear me off of it while letting all of Shisui's explanations fly over his head or not bother to hear it at all. He never did approve. He was far more against me doing jutsus than father ever was. I didn't know why before, but now I understood. Itachi was always scared when it came to me and Sasuke. He made sure to peek into our rooms at night when we were sleeping, just to make sure we were there, after the Hyuga incident happened. He's got a protective streak a mile long. They won't sponsor me. I wanted to enroll myself, I said while averting my eyes. I didn't want him to get involved. I didn't want him to get hurt because of me. But, he was Shisui ni. I could trust him. Would you do it? For me? I asked. It was evil of me to take advantage of the emotional investment he apparently had for me. It was evil of me to take advantage of his weakness to my pining. But, I needed to be a ninja. And I trusted him. Why don't you talk it out with them first, calmly? If all else fails, then I'll consider. His words were soothing. He wasn't being complacent. But, he also gave me a chance. A choice. He gave me hope, a reassurance. That meant everything if I was going to face my parents, my family, again. I'll try. But you better keep your promise. I was desperately trying to hang on to his words. If I didn't, I don't think I could hold myself up. When have I ever broken a promise? He asked with a smirk. I felt my lips tug upward and relief well in me. Shisui ni never breaks his promises.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.